This guy was just standing in the schoolyard, practicing the newly taught move. Nothing special, at least that's what everyone thought. Then he throws a punch, boom. Not one sound. Not two. 9 thunderclaps, all at once. And somewhere nearby, a top-tier martial artist watching in secret? Yeah, completely shaken. Because even the Academy's #1 genius, after hours and hours of non-stop training, can barely hit 3 thunderclap. That's already considered the beginner standard. This guy? Half a day. That's all it took for him to reach the level others can't even touch. So what's his deal? Turns out, he's been chosen by the gods. While everyone else is struggling to remember the basics, he's got something extra working for him. Inside his own mind, there's a version of him training non-stop, so while others are still trying to figure it out, he's already finished. Now here's where things start getting interesting. This guy? He can pick up any martial art and master it almost instantly. No long training arcs. He sees it once, maybe twice, and that's it. Perfect execution. And it gets better. Every time he defeats someone, he gains points. Not just for show, real points. The kind you can actually spend. More points means more strength by copying others' technique. Now the scene has shifted to the present where, in a flurry of strikes, a young man named Su Hong practices his Vajra fist. A fellow student marvels at his improvement, asking if he has already reached the coveted micro-level in martial arts mastery. Su Hong confirms he broke through 2 days ago. The student, impressed, declares that no one in the class can match Su Hong's Vajra fist and decides to head home, leaving the cultivation maniac to his training. As Su Hong prepares to leave, his teacher, Li, stops him. The teacher's expression is serious as he brings up the 30,000 registration fee for the martial arts department, reminding Su Hong that the deadline is next Monday. Su Hong asks for a few more days, but the teacher can only sigh, explaining that while he knows Su Hong's family is struggling, the rules are absolute. Left alone in the empty training hall, Su Hong is crushed by the weight of the 30,000 fee. He remembers his past. His parents died in a ferocious beast disaster when he was just 3, leaving him in the care of his aunt and uncle. They discovered his talent for martial arts and have fully supported his training ever since, hoping it would lead to a high-income profession in their dangerous world. He feels a pang of guilt, realizing that his dream is making their lives even harder. Returning home late, he overhears his aunt and uncle discussing their finances. They decide the rent can wait. Paying for Su Hong's registration fee is the priority. His aunt says she will get another job, while his uncle suggests stopping his own medication to save money, insisting that little Hong's talent is too great to hold back. Overwhelmed with guilt, Su Hong enters the room. They fuss over him, telling him to rest. In his room, he lies awake, tormented by their sacrifices. He resolves that he must solve this problem himself. There is only one place a martial artist can earn that much money in just a few days. The next day, Su Hong arrives at the underground martial arena. An announcer's voice booms, welcoming the audience to a place where only victory and defeat matter. Life and death are irrelevant. She introduces the reigning champion, a hulking fighter wearing a red mask, known as Mr. Minotaur. The announcer tells the newcomer to show some passion and heat up the atmosphere. She whispers for him to provoke the crowd, explaining that rookies are troublesome. Taking the cue, Su Hong roars, declaring himself invincible against anyone below the level of a true martial artist and calling all weaklings to come and fight. The crowd erupts in a frenzy, shouting for his death. The first match begins. Su Hong believes his Vajra fist is enough to win a few rounds and collect the tuition fee. His opponent rushes in, but Su Hong calmly notes his strong momentum but unstable lower body, seeing an easy win. A single, powerful blow sends the challenger flying. Without pausing, Su Hong calls for the next opponent. The announcer declares the first victory for Minotaur. His second opponent is more formidable. The two trade blows and Su Hong feels the man's strong fist force, but knows his own is greater. He spots a critical opening when his opponent puts too much force into his upper body, leaving his waist exposed. Su Hong seizes the chance and ends the fight in a flash. After a third consecutive win, a well-dressed man watching from a private VIP seat, he remarks that the kid is unusual, his strength far exceeding an average martial apprentice. The man decides Su Hong is perfect for match-fixing and sends his subordinate, a fighter in a White Fox mask called White Fox, to take care of him. He warns White Fox not to reveal that he is a true martial artist. One victory away from the 60,000 prize, Su Hong is shocked when his final opponent is revealed to be White Fox, a known quasi-martial artist. He knows the match will be difficult, but he cannot afford to lose. The bell rings and the final match starts. Knowing his cultivation realm is lower, Su Hong attacks first with all his might. But White Fox stops his punch with ease. The terrifying power behind the block stuns Su Hong, who realizes his opponent isn't a quasi-martial artist at all. He's a true martial artist who deliberately suppressed his vitality. Before Su Hong can react, White Fox unleashes a devastating Thunder Rush fist, leaving him bleeding and broken. White Fox taunts him, asking why he only defends. Su Hong struggles to withstand the onslaught, knowing he will lose if it continues. He desperately searches for an opening to counterattack, but the barrage is too intense. His consciousness begins to fade. Standing over the defeated Su Hong, White Fox informs him that he won't receive a single cent of the prize money. However, his teacher invites Su Hong to join them. If he agrees to fix matches for them in the future, they will pay him the prize for this match. Burning with indignation, Su Hong refuses to do such a shameless thing and accuses them of being unworthy of the title of martial artist. Enraged, White Fox declares his intention to cripple Su Hong, ensuring he could never become a martial artist in his dreams. As the crippling blow descends, visions of his family's sacrifices flash through Su Hong's mind. He cannot let their efforts go to waste. He thinks of his promise to give them a good life and screams that he will never accept a future of failure. A system window materializes before his eyes, asking what he is willing to sacrifice for his family. With a final, desperate roar, he bellows, "Everything!" With a defiant roar of everything, Su Hong's world vanishes. He finds himself in a dark, empty space, wondering where he is. A colossal, radiant, winged being materializes before him, and with a flash of light, he's thrown backward. A translucent blue screen flickers to life in front of him, a status window displaying his attributes and martial skills. He notices a tab labeled Mission, and instinctively taps it. The system reveals the Way of the Arena mission, to polish his martial arts and defeat the White Fox waiting in the outside world. The objective is to upgrade his Vajra fist to the mastered level and his other skills to the micro level. It's a beginner's mission with no reward, but promises to unlock a guide. Suddenly, a perfect clone of himself appears and attacks with a flawless, textbook-quality Vajra fist. Su Hong realizes this isn't an enemy, but the ultimate role model. He eagerly engages, seizing the chance to learn from a perfect version of himself. As they spar, a progress bar for his Vajra fist proficiency jumps from 7% to 10% in moments. He understands that this mysterious space allows for rapid skill upgrade. He fights with renewed determination, his skills advancing at an unbelievable rate. In what feels like an eternity of intense combat, his floating light palm and void step reach 100% and evolve to the micro level. Finally, his Vajra fist also hits its peak and breaks through to the mastered level. Exhausted but triumphant, he gives a grateful nod to the clone as it dissipates. A notification congratulates him on completing the mission and asks if he agrees to return to reality. He accepts. Time snaps back into motion in the arena. White Fox, his attack halfway to completion, sneers at Su Hong's mysterious glowing aura and strikes with his Thunder Rush fist. But now the attack seems laughably slow. Su Hong dodges with ease and lands a single, devastating punch that knocks White Fox out cold. The entire stadium falls into a stunned silence. Su Hong walks calmly to the dumbfounded announcer and asks when he will receive his prize money. Jolted back to reality, she hastily declares Minotaur the winner of the 60,000 grand prize. In the VIP suite, the arena boss is in disbelief. He questions how a mere martial apprentice could possibly master the Vajra fist, a feat beyond most true martial artists. He furiously orders his men to follow Su Hong and uncover his true identity. Su Hong leaves the arena, sensing he's being followed. He slips into the dark alleyways, his movements fluid and sure, easily losing the thugs tailing him. An hour later, he arrives home and places the stacks of cash before his astonished aunt and uncle, who ask if he robbed a bank. Su Hong smoothly lies, explaining that the master of a dojo where he sparred was so impressed by his talent that he decided to sponsor his studies. His aunt remains skeptical, but his uncle proudly declares that their boy would never lie to them. Later, on the roof, Su-hong looks at his system window with a grin. His family's financial troubles are solved. The system notifies him that by defeating a higher-level opponent, he has earned 67 martial value points, which can be used to increase his vitality. He immediately pours points into it, and his vitality stat climbs to 90, elevating him to the rank of a quasi-martial artist. He feels a surge of power and decides to use all the remaining points. As his strength skyrockets, the wounds from his fight completely heal. Feeling an endless reserve of new power, he heads to the deserted school drill ground to test his limits on a combat power tester. Deciding to start with just 70% of his strength, he winds up and throws a punch. The machine instantly overloads, smoke starting to come out of it, and shatters. He mutters about the tester's poor quality, hoping he won't have to pay for it, before quickly fleeing the scene. Moments later, a furious groundskeeper arrives, screaming about which bastard broke his equipment and vowing to punish the usual suspects. In the gymnasium of Star City No. 1 High School, students were buzzing with gossip. The main topic was Chen Shan, who had been beaten up after smashing a tester machine the previous night. A student explained that Chen Shan had been punished by the principal and forced to take the blame because he refused to admit to his actions. Their chatter was interrupted by the principal, who introduced his old comrade in arms, a Tier 3 martial artist named Chen Tian. The guest instructor announced he was there to teach everyone a C-rank martial art, the Thunder Rush Fist, and expected them all to learn it well. Hearing this, the protagonist, Su-hong, became determined. He knew that learning such a technique outside of school would cost a fortune, and he resolved to seize this rare opportunity. The instructor, Chen Tian, declared he would demonstrate the fist 10 times, and how much the students learned would be up to them. As the students marveled at seeing a Tier 3 martial artist for the first time, Su-hong recalled that this was the same technique the White Fox had used. Chen Tian began his demonstration. He explained that at the basic level, the Thunder Rush Fist emits a single sound of thunder. Mastery progressed through levels. 3 sounds for proficient, 5 for micro-level, 7 for mastered, and a full 9 sounds for the perfect realm. He advised the students to aim for just the basic level for today. Hours later, the students were exhausted and dejected, finding the C-rank art far too difficult to learn. Suddenly, Chen Shan, the school's top genius, successfully executed a punch with a single thunderous sound, reaching the basic level. The principal proudly pointed him out to Chen Tian, asking if he was interested in mentoring the boy. However, Chen Tian was unimpressed, remarking that in other cities, this was merely a passing grade. He lamented that the students were not up to his standards. As the two men walked away, Chen Tian commented on the cruel nature of martial arts, where talent was far more important than hard work. Just then, they were stunned by the sound of a 7-sound Thunder Rush Fist. A student had reached the mastered level after just half a day of practice. Chen Tian's shock turned to disbelief as he realized it wasn't 7 sounds, but 9. Someone had achieved the perfect realm. He urged the principal to help him find this prodigious student, but by the time they rushed back, the individual was gone. In the aftermath, Chen Tian was ecstatic. Witnessing the perfect technique had given him a sudden inspiration, allowing him to break through to the 8-sound level himself, a feat he thought he might never have achieved in his lifetime. Elsewhere, Su-hong walked away, reflecting on how exhausting the C-rank skill was. A look at his status panel confirmed his success. His Thunder Rush Fist was listed as perfect. His next goal was to earn martial values to break through to the rank of a true martial artist, and he wondered if sparring would be enough to earn them. Su-hong arrived at his workplace, the Raging Thunder Dojo. Inside, he saw a purple-haired youth named Li Yan berating and kicking another student. A friend explained that Li Yan was the disciple of a new, powerful instructor who was arrogant and taught his classes with disdain for the common students. Su-hong stepped in, stopping Li Yan's attack. Angered by the interference, Li Yan challenged Su-hong to a one-on-one fight in the arena, a challenge Su-hong calmly accepted. Their confrontation was cut short by the arrival of the new instructor, who announced that class was starting. Li Yan told Su-hong he was lucky and backed off, while Su Hong noted his opponent's arrogance. The instructor, Li Yan's master, declared he would only demonstrate the Raging Sea Spear technique once. Li Yan scoffed, believing it was impossible to learn from a single viewing. Su Hong, however, focused intently, absorbing the movements. After the brief demonstration, the instructor left the students to practice. While most were confused, Su Hong understood the technique's core principle. The spear must flow with the momentum of endless waves. He picked up a spear and began to practice, his movements fluid and precise. The other students watched in awe, whispering about what a martial arts prodigy he was. From a distance, Li Yan was shocked, unable to believe Su Hong had actually learned the technique so quickly. A friend warned Su Hong to be careful, as Li Yan was very strong. Undeterred, Su Hong approached Li Yan and asked for a match. Intrigued, Li Yan decided to test Su Hong's true ability, offering to give him some pointers. He attacked with a micro-level Raging Sea Spear technique, but Su Hong effortlessly countered, unleashing a proficient-level version of the very same skill. Li Yan was left completely stunned, unable to comprehend how his opponent had surpassed him in an instant. In a burst of pure martial skill, Su Hong defeats an opponent far stronger than himself. His system immediately confirms the win and rewards him with 35 martial points. Across from him, Li Yan collapses to the ground, stunned and unable to accept what just happened. He cannot understand how someone could bring the Raging Sea Spear technique to a proficient level in such a short time. The scene shakes him deeply, making him question the value of his own years of harsh training. As Li Yan's frustration reaches its breaking point, an instructor steps in at once, sharply scolding Li Yan for refusing to accept defeat and questioning his mindset as a martial artist. Clearly impressed, the instructor points out that Su Hong learned the technique simply by watching a single demonstration. Turning to Su Hong, he explains that Li Yan's arrogance led to his loss and that being defeated by a true genius will serve as an important lesson. He then sincerely apologizes for his students' poor behavior. Su Hong watches quietly, noting how quickly the instructor's attitude changed once his talent was revealed. On the way home, Su Hong reflects on the exhausting yet rewarding day. He opens his status screen and confirms his information. Name, Su Hong. Vitality, 91.7. The Raging Sea Spear technique now shows as proficient, and he has 35 unused martial points. His thoughts shift to the upcoming school exams. He knows that wealthier students have already bought high-grade alloy weapons. Since he enjoyed using the spear, he decides he will need to buy an alloy version as well. A quick search crushes his hope. A single alloy weapon costs a shocking 69,800. His savings are not even enough to cover his aunt's medical expenses, let alone such a purchase. Just as he begins to feel helpless, his gaze lands on a public notice. The city lord is recruiting martial artists to hunt the growing number of ferocious beasts in the Star City wilderness, with generous rewards offered. An idea immediately forms in his mind. He will hunt beasts outside the city. When Su Hong gets home, he finds his aunt and uncle inside. His aunt is carefully tending to his uncle's injuries, worried about why he keeps working so hard when Su Hong has already given them money. His uncle insists that Su Hong is still young and that they cannot rely entirely on him. He wants to save for Su Hong's future while he still has the strength to work. Su Hong greets them warmly. Although his aunt urges him to rest, he tells his uncle that he can earn money now and that his uncle should stay home to recover and take care of her. His uncle is clearly touched but says he cannot bring himself to do nothing. Su Hong reassures them that he is only earning a small amount for daily expenses and will not push himself too hard. His uncle reminds him that martial arts training is costly and that they want to support him as much as they can. Deeply moved by their selflessness and unwilling to see them harm their health, Su Hong becomes even more determined. He knows he cannot miss the opportunity to hunt beasts. Understanding how dangerous the wilderness is, Su Hong realizes he must strengthen himself first. Without hesitation, he spends all 35 martial points on vitality. He watches the number rise steadily until it reaches 95.2. 2 days later, late at night, Su Hong lies exhausted on the floor of the empty school gym. His status screen shows that every one of his techniques, from the Raging Sea Spear to the Void Step, has reached the perfection stage. His vitality now stands at 95.3. He knows he is only one step away from becoming a true martial artist. It took 2 full days of relentless training, but now that his preparations are complete, it is time to move forward. On Saturday, Su Hong stands in front of the Star City martial artist base. He did not expect it to be so far from the city center. After seeing it countless times on television, he is finally here in person. He is stunned by the sheer number of martial artists gathered, a rare sight in Star City. He walks up to the bounty board and studies the rewards. An unranked beast earns 300 blue star coins, with higher-tier beasts offering much more. One important detail stands out. To claim a reward, the hunter must present the beast's left ear as proof. Nearby, he watches another hunter hand over a heavy bag filled with ears at the settlement counter. Suddenly, the crowd stirs as guards force people aside, shouting for everyone to make way for young Master Yi. A flamboyantly dressed young man strides through with an arrogant air. Su Hong observes his clothes and attitude, which remind him of fighters from underground arenas. The martial artists around him whisper among themselves, calling Yi a show-off and saying that if his uncle were not the base director, he would have been dealt with long ago. Someone mentions hearing that Yi was beaten recently and that he had it coming, explaining why he had not been seen for a while. Watching all this, Su Hong comes to a sobering realization. Beasts are not the only danger in the wilderness. Humans can be just as dangerous. He resolves to stay alert. As he approaches the gate leading outside the city, a guard notices his young age and asks if this is his first time going out alone. Su Hong admits that it is. The guard sneers inwardly, thinking he is just another reckless and ignorant kid. Stepping into the dense forest, Su Hong silently promises himself that he will return with a full harvest. However, after 2 hours of searching, he finds nothing at all. Frustrated, he wonders if the beasts in the outer area have already been wiped out and decides to push deeper into the wilderness. His choice quickly proves right. Before long, he comes face to face with a massive wolf covered in white fur, its red eyes glowing with menace. Su Hong recognizes it instantly from his studies. A Tier 1 initial stage beast, the Nether Moon Wolf. This is his first time seeing one in real life. With a chilling howl, the beast launches itself straight at him. A red-eyed, white-furred beast suddenly lunged forward. It moved fast, feral and violent, but the warrior didn't retreat. He stepped in and met the attack head-on, driving his fist straight into the beast's strike. Golden energy flared around his hand. The punch landed cleanly. The force exploded outward, a shock wave ripping through the beast's body and sending it flying back. The man stood where it fell, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The rush was better than he'd expected. Fighting ferocious beasts felt addictive. His hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but excitement. He realized just how far he'd come. A Tier 1 initial stage beast, defeated in a single move. He couldn't help wondering how he'd fare against something stronger. Almost on cue, a heavy presence emerged from the shadows, a raging black bear, a Tier 1 middle stage ferocious beast. The fight barely lasted a moment. One clash, one decisive blow, and it was over. Standing over the fallen bear, his hands still glowing faintly, he felt confident. At his current level, Tier 1 beasts weren't much of a threat anymore. As long as he didn't provoke anything Tier 2, he figured he'd be safe. He pulled out a knife and secured the reward from the kill, already thinking ahead. The system informed him that his accumulated martial value was enough to upgrade his rank. This was it, he could finally break through and become a true martial artist. Later, while resting, a sudden surge of energy swept through the area. He frowned, wondering what kind of beast could give off an aura like that. Curiosity won out. He moved fast, leaping through the forest canopy toward the source. Then he stopped. His eyes locked onto the scene ahead. Looming before him was a massive, dark-scaled serpent, a black jade giant python, a Tier 1 late-stage ferocious beast. Nearby, another warrior was flung aside like a ragdoll, smashed into the ground by the python's overwhelming strength. The man didn't get back up. The warrior watched grimly as the brutality unfolded. Then he moved. Launching himself off a rock, he shot straight toward the giant snake. His kick landed in a blur, smashing into the python's head with terrifying speed. The massive creature reeled back, its head snapping away from the impact. Blood splattered across the dusty ground. Behind him, the first warrior lay still, his chest pierced, life already gone. The hero landed and coughed, wiping blood from his mouth. He steadied himself, then glanced at the fallen man. He muttered that he'd borrow the spear for a moment and picked it up. Weapon in hand, he faced the towering python, fully alert now. The serpent lunged, jaws wide, fangs flashing. He didn't back down. Holding his ground, spear raised defensively. He remembered that beasts at this level usually required several martial artists working together. But he also remembered how easily he'd crushed that middle-stage bear. And that made all the difference. The hero held his ground as the massive python lunged at him, quickly judging the situation. With his current strength, he knew he could fight the black jade giant python head-on. He didn't hesitate. Activating his perfected void step, he slipped past the serpent's snapping jaws and reappeared above it, perfectly positioned to counter. He drove the spear down, pouring energy into it as he unleashed the raging sea spear technique. Blue, water-like energy surged along the shaft, and the spearhead punched through the thick scales on top of the python's head. The beast let out a deafening roar, pain rippling through its massive body. As the serpent thrashed violently, the warrior moved with it, sprinting along its huge, coiling form as if it were solid ground. He forced himself to stay balanced, blue energy swirling around him as he tightened his grip on the spear. His expression hardened. One more hit, he decided. Drawing in a deep breath, he flooded the spear with even more power. A roaring vortex of blue energy spiraled down the weapon as he struck again. The blow landed, carving a second wound into the python's head. Enraged, the giant serpent went berserk, smashing the ground and shaking the clearing as it flailed. The sheer difference in size meant he couldn't finish it in a single decisive blow. Staring at the raging beast, he adjusted his plan. He'd weaken it bit by bit, then wait for the right opening to end it, as he prepared a new move, Thunder Rush. After landing another successful strike, he immediately jumped back, widening the distance between them. From a safer position, spear raised, his approach became clear. Wait for an opening, strike fast, then disengage before the python could retaliate. He was breathing hard now. Fighting like this was exhausting, he admitted to himself, but it kept him alive. The python didn't look much better. It growled low and furious, its movements slower, its wounds adding up. He figured a few more clean maneuvers would be enough to bring it down. Raising his spear again, he braced himself and silently urged the beast to come at him once more. Then something felt wrong. A sudden noise behind him made his head snap to the side. His eyes widened as he demanded to know who was there. Before he could react, laughter rang out from above. A man dropped from the trees, his fist glowing with violent red energy. The hero barely had time to cross his arms before the punch landed. The force slammed into him and sent him skidding across the ground. He coughed hard as he pushed himself up to his knees, struggling to catch his breath. Looking up, he froze. Several hostile figures stood in front of him, blocking his path. He questioned who they were. A man in a trench coat stepped forward, a smug smile on his face. He casually remarked that they were meeting again and suggested, almost politely, that the hero hand over the black jade giant python. The group stood facing him, the wounded black jade giant python coiled weakly behind them. Their leader, young Master Yi, looked amused. He mocked the hero openly, saying he'd watched him leave the city alone and had fully expected him to die somewhere out in the wilderness. With a smug grin, Yi gestured toward the injured serpent. He clearly believed the hero had just gotten lucky, stumbling upon a heavily wounded black jade giant python and trying to claim credit for it. Hearing that, the hero quickly pieced things together. These people had arrived late. They hadn't seen the fight at all. One of the larger, more muscular henchmen stepped forward. He told the hero to get lost, saying young Master Yi had already decided the python was his. The hero swept his gaze over them. 5 opponents, all martial artists. Outnumbered like this, he knew a direct fight wouldn't end well. Still, he let out a short, dismissive laugh. Red energy flickered around his fist as he mocked the idea that his earlier blow had just been a sneak attack, openly questioning whether they truly believed he couldn't take them on. Then he moved. His punch shot forward, wrapped in terrifying red energy. The blow slammed into the henchman and sent the big man staggering backward. Young Master Ye's expression shifted instantly. He recognized the technique, Vajra Fist, and he identified the hero as the infamous Minotaur. The hero blinked in surprise at being recognized, briefly registering the name, White Fox, in his mind. He raised a hand to his mouth, fury burning behind his eyes. He declared that the hero was the first person who had ever humiliated him so badly in front of others. The hero grabbed the spear and turned, sprinting straight into the forest. He didn't hesitate for even a second before shouting the order to kill him, pointing sharply in his direction as his men rushed after him. They chased him into the dense woods, branches whipping past as visibility dropped fast. Before long, they lost sight of him entirely. One of the men warned the others to stay alert. The terrain was perfect for an ambush. Another scoffed, brushing it off, questioning why they should be afraid of a single person. That was when it happened. The hero burst out of the shadows in a blur, slamming into the dismissive henchman from the side. Before anyone could react, his glowing eyes shifted to the next target. He moved again, impossibly fast, cutting down a second pursuer in one clean motion. The body hit the ground hard, lifeless. Young Master Yi stared in disbelief. He couldn't process that kind of speed. One of the remaining men shouted in panic, recognizing the technique. He called it the Nine Echoes Thunder Rush Fist, perfected to a level even Tier 3 martial artists struggled to reach. He dropped from the trees without warning, striking another henchman from behind. The body tumbled across the ground and landed right at the feet of young Master Yi and his last remaining subordinate. The final subordinate panicked, begging Yi to leave immediately. He insisted the hero was far too strong to deal with. Yi didn't even consider it. He angrily dismissed the idea of retreat, staring into the forest with bloodshot eyes. He declared that no matter what, he would kill the hero today. From the shadows, the hero watched him closely. The hero moved without hesitation, striking down the last remaining henchman. When it was over, young Master Yi stared at the scene in disbelief, fury twisting his face. He cursed under his breath, unable to wrap his head around how the hero had grown this strong in just a few days. The hero suddenly vanished from Ye's sight. He spun around instantly, only to find empty air behind him. Before he could relax, the hero reappeared again at his back, already poised to strike. But this time, Yi reacted a split second faster. He turned sharply and launched an attack of his own. Fury twisted Ye's face as blue energy erupted around him. He flatly refused to accept that he could lose here, forcing his power upward. With a sharp gesture, he extended a finger and fired a concentrated beam of blue energy, his void-breaking finger. The hero barely managed to deflect the blast with the spear. He didn't stop. He snarled and unleashed a non-stop barrage. Explosions tore through the forest. Trees shattered, dirt blasted upward, and the hero was forced on the defensive, constantly parrying and dodging as energy beams detonated around him. Even while being pushed back, he stayed focused, quickly judging the technique's strength. From the sheer output alone, he figured it had to be a B-rank skill. He pointed at the hero and screamed that he'd memorized his face. If the hero dared hurt him any further, Yi vowed he'd wipe out his entire family. That threat landed wrong. The hero's expression went cold, all warmth draining from his eyes. In the next instant, the hero closed the distance between them. He yelled that his uncle was a supervisor at the martial artist base, that his father was a powerful figure, anything to survive. It didn't help. In a flash, the hero appeared right in front of him, red energy blazing around his fist. He remarked flatly that Yi had been more tolerable when he was acting superior. The punch came down like a verdict. Ye's body crumpled and crashed to the ground, broken and defeated. The hero stood over him, breathing hard, red energy still rolling off his body. He stated coldly that Yi never should have dragged his family into it. Barely conscious, blood pooling beneath him, Yi looked up in disbelief. He stammered that it was impossible, that the hero wasn't even a full martial artist. The black jade giant python's tail slammed down with crushing force, ending him instantly. The hero turned away and looked back toward the serpent. He'd spent too long dealing with the intruders. The giant python had fully recovered its stamina. In the forest clearing, the masked follower stared at his injured companion on the ground. He muttered to his partner that this kid was seriously not right. The other follower asked nervously where young Master Yi was, and if he had finished the job. Before they could speculate further, a rustle from the trees made the masked man turn sharply. The masked follower called out that he had finally decided to show himself. He lifted his weapon, adding that he wouldn't go easy on him. But Hiro was already on the move, spear in hand. He shouted for them to get out of the way as he shot forward like an arrow. The reason for his urgency became horrifyingly clear a second later. A monstrous snake burst from the undergrowth. The snake struck fast, its jaws snapping around one follower. A terrible scream was cut short. Almost instantly, a blue system screen flickered in Hiro's vision, reporting that an opponent had been indirectly eliminated and awarding him 30 martial value. Before anyone could react, the creature's heavy tail whipped around, crushing another follower. He thought to himself, stunned, that he could get points like that. Not sticking around to find out more, Hiro took off, sprinting deeper into the woods. As he leaped from branch to branch, his mind raced. His martial value was now high enough. Finally, he could break through and become a true martial artist. Perched high in a tree, he scanned the area. He needed a quiet, secure spot for his breakthrough. His eyes landed on a cave entrance halfway up a rocky cliffside. That looked perfect. He didn't get far. As he approached the dark opening, the same giant red-headed snake lunged out with a furious roar, trapping him inside the cavern. Hiro faced the beast, his back to the cave wall. A blue system interface materialized in front of him, displaying his details. It showed his name as Su Hong and his martial value as 504. No time to waste. Hiro focused and mentally hit the breakthrough command on the screen. He urged himself to go faster. A red aura suddenly erupted around him, waves of heat rolling off his body like he was filled with molten rock. His vitality skyrocketed. His vitality reached 100. Then, a brilliant notification appeared stating he had broken through to a Tier 1 martial artist. He said to the cave air that he was now a real martial artist. He turned his gaze back to the giant snake, his eyes gleaming. He announced that it was his turn. He shot forward, his fist already glowing with a fierce red light. The punch connected with the snake's snout. Energy pooled in his free hand. He growled the beginning of a command, "Get," as he raised the spear high. Blue, lightning-like energy crackled down its length. He yelled down as he brought the weapon crashing onto the snake's body in an explosion of blue force. As the dust settled, Hiro clenched his fist. Golden, crackling electricity surrounded it, buzzing with raw power. He announced his next attack, Thunder Rush Fist, and drove his energized fist down toward the wounded beast with a final, decisive blow. The snake's pained roar echoed through the cave as the attack landed. Hiro stood on the giant snake's body in the misty clearing, spear in hand. Even though the beast had already been hurt, he felt a surge of confidence knowing he could now face something like that straight on. A soft chime in his mind confirmed his victory, adding 92 martial value to his total. Sitting down on the scaled carcass, he remembered the usual rule: cut off the left ear to trade for coin. He stared at the snake's head, then sighed. Right. Snakes don't have ears. Well, no helping it. He decided he'd better just get moving and headed out of the rocky clearing, leaving the massive body behind. Walking through the sun-dappled forest with his spear slung over his shoulder, he eventually came across another body, this one with blonde hair. It was young Master Yi. Hiro looked down at him. "You got off easy," he said quietly. Crouching, he began to search the young master's belongings. His main hope was finding that high-level martial technique Yi had used in their fight. His fingers closed around a small, unmarked black book. Could this be it? The void-breaking finger? Later that night, back in the shelter of a cave with a small campfire crackling, Hiro studied the book intently. He'd committed the introductory method to memory. Now it was time to let the system do its work. In the familiar blue, data-stream space of his mind, he sat cross-legged. "Come on," he urged. A glowing, translucent copy of himself materialized before him. Together, they moved through the intricate forms. "Void-breaking finger," Hiro called out in the mental space. Streaks of light followed his movements as the system text flashed, tracking his progress. 51%, 78%, 93%. Back in the physical world, by the fire, a blue notification settled in his vision. Void-breaking finger, basic 1%. Hiro doubled over, coughing. Even at the basic level, a B-rank skill put an incredible strain on his body. 3 days later, a thunderous howl echoed through the trees. A huge, red-eyed ape monster slammed its fists against the ground. Perfect, Hiro thought. He needed something to test his new power on. He darted forward, energy focusing at his fingertip. The technique felt smooth, powerful. As the ape monster fell, Hiro stood amidst the settling dust, his fingers still glowing with a faint blue energy. He'd reached the perfect realm. The system confirmed it. Void-breaking finger, mastered-void-breaking finger, perfect. The power was absolutely worthy of a B-rank skill. The martial artist base was in an unusual state of quiet when he arrived. Inside, the main hall was buzzing. A crowd watched as one man at the counter collected a hefty payout of 230,000 blue star coins, murmurs of admiration rippling through the onlookers. Another group, the Thunder Squad, was being praised for their haul of Tier 1 beasts. When it was Hero's turn, he hoisted a large, heavy bag onto the counter. The woman working there peered inside, and her eyes went wide. She started counting, her voice rising with disbelief as she announced the total. 406,000 blue star coins from 72 initial stage, 83 middle stage, and 17 high stage Tier 1 beasts. A cold sweat prickled on Hero's neck. He'd gotten carried away. This was way too much attention. Before he could even leave the counter, a commotion erupted outside. Official vehicles screeched to a halt, blockading the base entrance. The crowd around him stirred, everyone turning to look. Was the base under attack? People whispered, noting the high-level martial artists now stationed at every exit. A stern-looking man in a suit, identified by the system as Yi Chi, base person in charge, and Yi Feng's uncle, barked orders to his subordinates. Seal the area. No one gets out. A brave soul from the crowd called out, asking what was going on. Yi Chi's face twisted with fury. His nephew Yi Feng and his entire group of 4 martial artists were all dead, he shouted. A shocked silence fell, then broke into frantic murmurs. Yi Feng was killed? His whole squad wiped out? Nearby, 2 men whispered to each other. Good riddance, one said. We've all been robbed by that crew. Finally, someone took out the scourge. Yi Chi, followed by an assistant, pushed through the crowd. He made a chilling announcement. A B-rank martial skill was missing from his nephew's body. Every martial artist present would be searched. Hero stayed in the middle of the crowd, keeping his expression neutral. The bodies had been mauled by that giant python. There shouldn't be a trail leading back to him. As he began to move with the flow of people, he couldn't shake the feeling. Were they already targeting him? Suddenly, Yi Chi himself was there, his gaze locking onto Hero. I heard a little brother here killed 400,000 worth of beasts all by himself, Yi Chi said, his voice carrying over the murmurs. Your skills must be truly amazing. Su Hong noticed his path was blocked, and a man in a sharp suit stepped forward, flanked by a few rough-looking thugs. The man's face carried a polite sort of menace as he spoke, mentioning the rumors about Su Hong's recent solo hunt and the fortune in beast cores he was said to have gained. But the thugs weren't convinced. They looked at Su Hong like he was just some low-level fighter, a novice who could never have pulled off such a feat to them. He was nothing more than a thief who probably took the missing young Master Ye's backpack. The thugs tried to grab him, but Su Hong moved faster than their eyes could follow, his weapon appearing in a blur. He spoke coolly, reminding them he was a student at the elite Xingqian No. 1 high school and daring them to touch him. The leader hesitated, caught between anger over his nephew's stolen martial art and the risk of provoking a potential prodigy from the top academy. Trying another approach, the man offered 10,000 as compensation for the search. Su Hong stayed calm, knowing his secrets were safe with Yi Feng gone, claimed by a monstrous python in the wild. He countered, asking for 3 times the offer. With no other choice, the man agreed. Su Hong even encouraged them to be thorough to avoid being wrongly accused. The search turned up nothing, but just as Su Hong was about to leave with the money, the leader called him back, insisting no one could leave until he was fully satisfied. By the time the man finished speaking, Su Hong had vanished into the city. Thinking about his next move, a quick shower and then a visit to the Warriors Association to test his rank and get the guidance technique. Alone in the room, Su Hong pulled up his internal status screen, a holographic display floating before him. He had 534 martial arts points, the result of relentless training and brutal encounters. His chi and blood value was 103, just enough to be a first-tier martial artist. The next stage required 200 points, and with his accumulated points, he could almost reach it in one step. But his attention turned to 2 stats he'd never touched before, spirit and mortal body. Curious about their potential, he started allocating points into spirit, watching the number climb with no immediate effect. Then he focused on mortal body, eager to see what evolution it might bring. The Warriors Association proving grounds were buzzing with energy. A promising young fighter, a disciple of the famous Jiang Ming, had just finished his test with a combat power of 1763, enough to nearly be a mid-tier warrior. The crowd admired him, and he turned to the next challenger, Su Hong, with obvious disdain. For him, testing at that age meant genius. But Su Hong? He was probably average at best. Su Hong stepped up to the qi and blood detector. The screen lit up at his touch, showing a reading of 123. The hall went silent. People whispered and questioned whether the machine was broken. Even the arrogant disciple's confident face faltered, and the proctor double-checked before announcing, clearly surprised, that Su Hong had passed. The disciple muttered that raw life force meant nothing, insisting combat power was the real measure. All eyes turned to Su Hong as he approached the combat assessment pillar. Inside, he remained calm, calculating. His recent upgrades had given him a huge boost in strength, and though he considered holding back, he decided to use about half of his true power. He struck, and the air itself seemed to react. The punch hit the pillar like an explosion. The multi-ton testing machine ripped from its moorings and smashed into the far wall. The crowd couldn't process what had just happened. This wasn't a test, it was pure destruction. Some whispered, some shouted. Nobody could believe that a first-stage novice had just shattered a high-tier benchmark with one casual punch. In the crowd, the man from the alley watched, pale and shocked. His subordinate pointed, stammering. The leader's eyes widened as realization hit. "It's him," he said quietly. "That explains everything." Meanwhile, across the city, Wu Linxian, president of the Star City Martial Arts Association, had been fuming over the lack of local talent. Her office door burst open, and an assistant delivered frantic news. A first-stage novice had just punched the testing machine into scrap metal, showing a combat power over 3,000. Wu Linxian's frustration instantly turned to sharp focus. Her city finally had its genius. Inside the main hall of the Martial Artists Association, a male staff member walked up to Su Hong and politely explained that there was a process to follow. He would need to head to the second floor first, get officially registered as a martial artist, and only then receive his monthly allowance. Su Hong gave a quiet thanks and was about to move, when a cool, commanding voice cut in, saying she would handle it herself. The staff member immediately straightened, clearly aware of who had spoken. From the second-floor balcony stood a woman with long golden hair. Her eyes landed on Su Hong as she calmly confirmed his name, then introduced herself as Wu Linxian, the president of the Star City Martial Artists Association branch. With a simple gesture, she told him to come along. Su Hong followed without hesitation, though inwardly he was surprised. He hadn't expected the association's president, someone rumored to be a Tier 5 martial artist, to feel so overpowering just by standing there. Once inside her office, Wu Linxian casually asked if he studied at Star City No. 1 High School. She mentioned that old man Liang had complained before, saying the school had only produced 2 average Tier 1 martial artists this year. What no one realized, she said, was that an exceptional talent had been quietly sitting among them the whole time. Su Hong felt more puzzled by the minute. He explained that he'd only come to register, collect his allowance, and pick up a guidance technique. Wu Linxian brushed that aside. His ID and allowance were already taken care of downstairs. As for the guidance technique, she said she would teach him personally. Standing in front of him, she asked how much he understood about guidance technique. Su Hong answered honestly, repeating what the textbooks taught, that heavenly and earthly spiritual keys had different attributes, and guidance techniques were used to absorb them and strengthen the body, as long as the attributes matched. Wu Linxian smiled slightly and said the explanation wasn't wrong, just incomplete. Guidance techniques weren't limited to cultivation alone. As she demonstrated her heavenly fire guidance technique, a flame appeared in her palm, growing stronger until blazing fire wrapped around her fist. She explained that it absorbed fire attribute spiritual keys, reinforced the body, and could directly enhance attacks with fire-based power. Once the attribute could be released outward, the range and impact of attacks increased dramatically. With a smooth motion, she sent a stream of fire forward before casually adding that most martial artists considered it impressive if their attacks carried even a faint trace of attribute power. Su Hong reevaluated everything he thought he knew. He'd always believed guidance techniques were strictly for absorption. None of the books mentioned combat use. Wu Linxian continued, explaining that heavenly and earthly spiritual keys carried 7 attributes: mental, wood, water, fire, earth, lightning, and wind. Each had different strengths, with lightning leading in raw offensive power, followed by mental and fire. But in the end, what mattered most was compatibility. She picked up a red crystal from her desk and explained that it was used to measure compatibility. The brighter it glowed, the higher the match. Most martial artists fell around 20 to 30%. Even her own 80% was considered exceptional. Given his talent, she expected him to surpass 90. Su Hong accepted the crystal, thinking that if someone like her had reached Tier 5 with 80%, then 70 would already be impressive for him. The crystal answered immediately. A brilliant red glow filled it almost completely, lighting up the office. Wu Lingxian stared in disbelief as the result became clear. Perfect fire attribute compatibility. She explained quickly that this meant he could absorb fire spiritual keys with no loss at all. By comparison, her own absorption wasted 20% every time. That alone placed his potential far beyond hers. She admitted she never imagined Star City could produce someone on par with the top talents from the Imperial Capital or Magic City. As Su Hong looked at the crystal, another thought crossed his mind. Fire was strong, but lightning suited him better. The crystal reacted again, this time bursting with a dazzling golden glow. After a brief pause, Su Hong quietly noted that his lightning compatibility also appeared to be perfect. Wu Lingxian struggled to process it. Dual attributes, both flawless. Before she could fully react, the crystal continued responding. Wind followed, then the others. One after another, every attribute reached the same result. 7 attribute. All perfect. Wu Lingxian sank into her chair, her past achievements suddenly feeling distant. She remembered being praised as a top genius herself, reaching Tier 5 before 30. But standing in front of someone who broke every rule, she realized how different the gap truly was. For Su Hong, 7 perfect attributes felt both like a gift and a weight. Giving up any of them seemed unbearable, so he asked for copies of all 7 guidance techniques. Wu Lingxian reacted sharply, warning him that human energy was limited. Even the most gifted martial artists usually focused on 1 or 2 attribute. She recalled someone who tried to cultivate all 7 and never advanced past Tier 1, even after decade. Su Hong didn't argue. He simply said he wasn't ready to choose yet. He wanted to try first. After a moment, Wu Lingxian agreed, reminding him not to waste such rare talent. She then brought up the upcoming monthly school exam. With tensions rising at the All-Heaven battlefield, and the threat of war with the 10,000 races looming, nations were pouring resources into a genius training camp. She planned to recommend him. If he took first place in the school exam, he'd qualify automatically. Hearing about the 10,000 races stirred memories from over a decade ago, when Su Hong lost everyone except his uncle and aunt. His resolve settled firmly. He would become stronger. That kind of loss would never happen again. When he returned home, he excitedly told his uncle and aunt that he was now an official martial artist. Their reactions were immediate: joy, relief, and emotion all at once. He explained that a Tier 1 martial artist received a monthly allowance of 10,000, meaning his uncle no longer had to push himself to exhaustion. They called him the family's support. Su Hong took a steady breath. From this point on, they were protected. That night, just past midnight, he tested the guidance technique. Sitting quietly, he circulated his energy. His eyes glimmered faintly as he punched forward. A small flicker formed around his fist, but instead of fire, only thin smoke drifted out. He frowned. This felt far weaker than expected. Then a notification appeared, confirming that he had successfully learned the guidance technique. Checking the details, he saw it was only level 1. That was when a new idea took shape. If guidance techniques had levels, then maybe this was something only he could push far beyond its limit. Su Hong stared at the system interface, still unable to wrap his head around one thing: how guidance techniques were actually upgraded. He tried pouring martial value into it the same way he had done with his other skills. The system responded instantly with a warning saying his martial value wasn't enough. Seeing that, he didn't push further. There was no point forcing it. He reasoned that it made more sense to slow down, focus on cultivation first, fully grasp every guidance technique, and then worry about earning more martial value later. With his plan set, he settled into cultivation. He worked on all the guidance techniques at once. Almost immediately, a fierce, blazing aura burst out from his body. Hours passed in silence. One after another, the Thunder Guidance Technique, Water Marsh Guidance Technique, Thick Earth Guidance Technique, and Spirit Wind Guidance Technique all reached level 1. Inside him, 7 different spiritual keys now existed together. The problem showed itself right away. The energies didn't cooperate. They pushed against each other aggressively. At that moment, Su Hong finally understood what President Wu had warned him about. There really had been geniuses in the past who tried cultivating 7 techniques at once, and never moved beyond Tier 1. The energy inside his body turned violent. Pain spread as his veins stood out sharply and sweat streamed down his face. Even though all 7 attributes were present, he realized he could only activate 1 at a time. The instant he tried to use 2 together, the energies clashed, wiped each other out, and vanished. A red flame burst from his palm, lasting only a heartbeat before breaking apart. He focused again, and lightning surged instead. Su Hong narrowed his eyes. Fire and lightning were naturally close in nature. Could they really not be combined? He tried again. The result was the same. Annoyance crept in, but he didn't stop. He tried again, and again. Time slipped by unnoticed until the sky began to lighten. His breathing turned rough, his clothes soaked, his arms shaking from fatigue, but he kept going. Lightning surged once more. This time, he forcefully dragged the fire along with it. Energy exploded outward as he pushed through with everything he had. And finally, it worked. After an entire night of non-stop attempts, lightning and fire fused into a single force. Without wasting time, Su Hong decided to test it properly. He headed straight to the Star City Martial Arts Square. This time, he chose a Tier 3 combat power tester, not interested in repeating his past mistake of destroying equipment. Previously, using only half his strength, he had hit 3,000 combat power. Now, he limited himself to just 30%. He threw a punch. The number jumped past 2,300. Su Hong paused. By his estimate, it should have been closer to 1,800. That was nearly a 500-point difference. If pure lightning already gave results like this, what would happen when combined with fire? Energy gathered again in his palm. When he struck, the tester shook hard as the number shot past 3,000. A small smile appeared as he looked at his hand. With thunder fire combined and only 30% output, he had already surpassed a high-stage Tier 1 martial artist. And his vitality was only 123. That kind of potential felt overwhelming, and this was with just 2 attributes. His thoughts immediately jumped ahead. What if he combined all 7? Lightning crackled and flames swirled in his palm as he made his next decision. He would attempt 3 attributes next. Later, on the rooftop of his home, Su Hong lay flat, shirtless, staring at the sky. After countless intense attempts, he finally accepted the truth. Merging 3 attributes was far harder than merging 2, several times harder. No matter how he adjusted or experimented, there was no real progress. That was when the answer clicked. The issue wasn't his control. It was the level of his guidance technique. He checked the system again. All of them were still stuck at level 1. And the monthly exam was tomorrow. For now, what he needed most was more martial value. The next morning, Star City No. 1 High School was packed. Students filled every corner. The principal announced that today's exam would be different. Due to rising pressure on the front lines, a large-scale genius training camp was being set up to prepare for future conflict. The rewards were insane. Top-tier resources, martial arts manuals, pills, and even grandmasters as instructors. The top 3 students in this exam would earn a spot in Star City's training camp. The crowd erupted. A genius training camp. Someone whispered that one of the instructors was a Tier 7 grandmaster. That alone sounded unreal, especially when the principal himself was only Tier 3. Ambition lit up faces across the field. Su Hong focused on one detail only. Top 3. Ranking high wasn't enough. A friend moved up beside him and dropped some unexpected news. Shen Shan and Li Tu had both broken into Tier 1. Many students had reached the basic level of Thunder Rush Fist. Su Hong had been gone for 10 days, and during that time breakthroughs had piled up. There were even rumors of special training arranged by the principal. Shen Shan and Li Tu both had vitality over 100 now, and their Thunder Rush attacks produced 3 echoes. Shen Shan openly told Li Tu he'd prove who the real strongest was. Li Tu shot back that after slamming Shen Shan into the ground, he hoped the confidence would still be there. As the principal stepped down, an instructor asked quietly whether they had found the genius who used the 9-echo Thunder Rush Fist. The principal replied that he'd searched everywhere and believed that person wasn't a student here. Before the conversation could continue, a group approached. The man in front spoke with a mocking tone, asking why the principal looked so miserable. It was Zhang Ming. The principal frowned and asked what he was doing on campus. Zhang Ming casually replied that this year's students didn't look impressive and brought along 2 disciples, joking about sparring with the school's top students after the exam. The principal immediately understood. This was public humiliation. Refusing would only confirm weakness. Before he could answer, Zhang Ming added that he'd understand if the principal declined. After all, the students looked fragile. An instructor snapped back, asking if Zhang Ming was picking a fight. The exchange stopped abruptly when someone leaned in and whispered something to Zhang Ming, pointing toward the crowd. Zhang Ming followed the direction and spotted Su Hong standing calmly among the students, a faint smile on his face. Recognition hit instantly. So he really was from number 1 high school. Zhang Ming cursed inwardly and gestured to his disciples. Facing that boy meant guaranteed loss. Rather than embarrass himself, he laughed it off, saying he'd only been joking. There was no competition at all. His disciples played along, pretending to back down. The principal and instructor were furious. Soon after, the exam officially began. The first match was announced. Number 665, Shang Peng, versus number 666, Su Hong. As they stepped onto the stage, Su Hong's friend grew nervous. Shang Peng was a quasi-martial artist known for raw strength. A teacher shouted a reminder not to push too hard. Injuries weren't worth it. Before the match even started, Shang Peng smirked and asked whether Su Hong planned to fall on his own or be slammed down. In the next moment, Su Hong disappeared. Before anyone could react, he appeared behind Shang Peng, grabbed him with one hand, and drove him straight into the floor. The arena went quiet. His friend and the teacher stared, swearing softly. They couldn't understand when Su Hong had reached this level. One move. Complete victory. As the dust settled, Su Hong stood alone at the center of the stage. Su Hong stood over his defeated opponent again, calm as ever. The crowd completely lost it. They shouted that Su Hong had won again, and asked how he was even that strong. Some of them started guessing that he might already be a Tier 1 martial artist. Excitement kept rising as people reminded each other that the next match would decide the champion. Up in the office, Principal Lee sat with Chen Tain, watching everything unfold. Chen Tain frowned and asked where this Su Hong had suddenly come from. He said he had been giving private tutoring before, yet Su Hong had never shown up in front of him. Principal Lee lowered his gaze and admitted it was his own failure. He said he should have discovered such a promising student earlier. By not giving Su Hong proper guidance sooner, he felt like he had almost buried real talent. Chen Tain looked thoughtful. He mentioned that Su Hong seemed familiar, like he had seen him somewhere before, but he just couldn't remember where. Soon, Principal Lee shifted the topic and said the semi-final between Chen Shan and Li Tu should be wrapping up with a winner any moment. Down in the arena, Chen Shan and Li Tu were locked in a fierce fight. Spectators commented that their strength looked almost identical, making it impossible to predict who would win. Li Tu suddenly prepared a heavy punch and told Chen Shan that since they both knew the 3 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist, Chen Shan shouldn't even dream of winning without using his ultimate move. Chen Shan blocked it. Then Chen Shan's fist burst into flames. He told Li Tu to watch carefully and declared that he was the real number 1 in the school. The crowd gasped. Some shouted that Chen Shan could already perform attribute externalization and that it was the fire attribute, second only to thunder in power. But Li Tu answered calmly, saying attribute externalization wasn't anything special. As he spoke, a blue aura wrapped around his fist. Spectators immediately reacted, saying Li Tu could use it too, and his was the metal attribute, known for even stronger combat power than fire. Li Tu then added that he had more to show. He unleashed the 5 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist. The two clashed violently. Chen Tain observed that in just around 10 days, Li Tu had mastered attribute externalization and pushed his Thunder Rush Fist to the micro-level. He admitted Li Tu's talent was impressive. Principal Lee calmly said there was no need to even watch the final. With micro-level Thunder Rush Fist and the metal attribute, Su Hong had no way of beating Li Tuesday. He added that it was a pity. If Su Hong had learned a guidance technique and Thunder Rush Fist, he might have stood a chance. Off to the side, a man suddenly proposed a bet. He offered 50,000 that Su Hong would take first place and asked if Principal Lee and Chen Tain were interested. One of them called him crazy, pointing out that while Su Hong was strong, he didn't even know a guidance technique. What could he possibly use to win? The man laughed and said since they were so confident, he would gladly take their money. Soon, the final match was announced. Final match. Number 01 Li Tu versus number 666 Su Hong. The crowd roared, cheering for both sides. Li Tu looked at Su Hong and said he had been lucky. He hadn't run into Li Tu or Chun Shan earlier and had somehow made it to the finals. Su Hong stayed quiet, studying him. Li Tu then said that since Su Hong had made it this far, he could at least call himself number 2 in the school. Su Hong casually asked who number 1 was. Li Tu stepped forward and declared that number 1 was obviously him. He claimed he only needed one move to show Su Hong the gap between them. Without hesitation, Li Tu opened with the 5 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist. The audience was stunned. They wondered if he really needed to go that hard right from the start. Some already declared it over, saying once that move came out, Su Hong had no chance. Su Hong's eyes sharpened. Flames gathered around his fist. He had originally wanted to test the limits of his physical strength. After hunting so many ferocious beasts, fighting students felt almost too easy. Li Tu was finally someone interesting. Instead of dodging, Su Hong stepped forward and met the attack head-on. People yelled that he had lost his mind and begged the referee to step in. The two fists collided in a blast of light. In the next instant, Su Hong threw 5 rapid punches and broke through Li Tu's 5 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist. Li Tu couldn't believe it. He realized Su Hong had dismantled his ultimate move with pure physical strike. Su Hong continued punching, each hit heavy and precise. Li Tu struggled to keep up, feeling the sheer weight behind every blow. Spectators shouted that Su Hong wasn't even using martial skills, yet he was matching Li Tu's 5 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist head-on. Others said Su Hong's strength was on another level and guessed he must have some kind of special physique. One teacher burst out laughing, saying the school had actually produced a genius with a special physique. Chun Tain narrowed his eyes and pointed out that while Su Hong's strength was shocking, Li Tu had already condensed an attribute. Su Hong still had no clear advantage. Li Tu slid back, then powered up again. He shouted at Su Hong not to get arrogant and insisted that only he could win. His fists glowed as he rushed forward. Su Hong had planned to keep testing his body alone, but seeing Li Tu go all out so quickly, he decided to respond properly. Electricity sparked around him. The crowd froze in shock as thunder gathered around Su Hong's fist. People started shouting that Su Hong could also use attribute externalization. Others were so stunned they could barely form words. They realized Su Hong had mastered the thunder guidance technique. A special physique plus the thunder attribute, the most aggressive of them all, made his talent overwhelming. The two attributes crashed against each other. Li Tu felt it instantly. Su Hong's thunder was even stronger than his metal. Su Hong calmly said that since Li Tu had shown his ultimate move, he would return the favor. This time, the exchanges were too fast to follow. When it ended, Li Tu was on the ground. He looked up in shock, realizing Su Hong had used 9 echoes. He couldn't understand how that was even possible. Su Hong stood over him quietly. For a moment, the audience had no words. Then someone shouted, asking if Su Hong had really won. The arena exploded with noise. People yelled that 9 Echoes Thunder Rush Fist was the perfect realm. Some even said Su Hong's Thunder Rush Fist looked stronger than the teacher who taught it. Others declared that this wasn't just a genius, this was the Dragon of Star City No. 1 High School. Chun Tain stared at Su Hong and muttered that 9 echoes shouldn't even be possible at this level. He suddenly wondered if Su Hong was the mysterious genius who had disappeared from school that day. He added that once someone like this entered the training camp, those so-called elites with powerful backgrounds would be in serious trouble. Standing alone in the ring, Su Hong said that a golden carp doesn't belong in a small pond. Once it meets wind and clouds, it becomes a dragon. In his heart, he knew Star City was just a small puddle to him. Principal Li smiled faintly. He believed that in the upcoming training camp, Su Hong would rise like a dragon from the depth. The Magic City, the Imperial Capital, even the battlefield of 10,000 races, those were the stages where someone like Su Hong would truly shine. By the time Su Hong got back to his old apartment building, the sun was already setting. His uncle had just finished making a simple dinner. Su Hong called out that he was home, and his uncle immediately asked how the exam went. With a grin, Su Hong said he'd taken first place in the monthly exam. His uncle stared at him for a second, then burst out in excitement. They were still celebrating when loud knocking suddenly hit the door. A woman's sharp voice came from the hallway, asking if this was Su-hong's home. Su-hong opened the door, confused. His uncle and aunt stood just behind him, peeking out cautiously. Outside stood a well-dressed woman covered in expensive jewelry. She introduced herself as Lin Nan's mother. She explained that only the top 3 students could enter the training camp. Her son had ranked 4th. Then she got straight to the point. She wanted Su-hong to give up his spot. She calmly pulled out a stack of cash, and said she was offering 30,000 if he stepped aside. Su-hong and his family just looked at her. No one reached for the money. They looked more confused than tempted. When she saw that the cash wasn't working, her tone changed. She said the training camp was brutal and that people could die there. She added that with their poor background, it would be smarter to quit early. Other students, she claimed, had high-grade pills and resources that Su-hong could never afford. Her words made his aunt uneasy. She asked Su-hong quietly if it was really that dangerous. His uncle rubbed her back, trying to calm her down. Then he turned to Su-hong and seriously asked if he could truly promise he'd be safe. Su-hong stepped forward and said clearly that he could guarantee his own safety. The woman let out a mocking laugh and asked the uncle if he actually believed a kid's promise. His uncle didn't hesitate. He said Su-hong was grown now, and there was no way he'd trust a stranger over his own family. The door shut behind her. From the hallway, she shouted that they were just waiting to get eliminated at camp. Inside, things slowly settled. His uncle asked Su-hong if he had hidden how dangerous the camp was. Su-hong told them it wasn't a big deal and that he could handle it. His uncle gave him a big thumbs up. He admitted he was just an ordinary man, but if Su-hong had the courage to face something like this, then the family would back him all the way. Suddenly, his aunt smacked his uncle on the back, telling him to stop making it so dramatic. She said they didn't care about rankings or glory. They just wanted Su-hong safe. Su-hong nodded with a warm smile. Hearing that made him feel lighter. Later that night, he stood alone on the rooftop, looking over the city lights. He knew that even though his uncle and aunt said they supported him, they were still worried. He quietly promised himself he wouldn't let them down. If he wanted to protect their new life, he had to get stronger. He opened his system interface. He had gained 285 martial value points from the monthly exam, but it didn't feel like enough. His mortal body stat was at 36.1%. Thinking about the powerful geniuses at the training camp, he decided to focus on strengthening his body first. He started adding points to the mortal body stat. A red glow surrounded him as the percentage slowly climbed. When it stopped, steam rose from his body. His mortal body had reached 64.6%, still far from 100%. He wondered what kind of special physique he would unlock once it was complete. Then he noticed something unexpected. Both his Thunder Guidance Technique and Heavenly Flame Guidance Technique had quietly advanced to level 2. He realized he'd only practiced them casually for a few days. Maybe there weren't any special requirements. Maybe steady practice alone was enough. Curious, he decided to try leveling them again right away. Lightning gathered in one hand. Flames burned in the other. He focused and began training through the night. By dawn, sunlight spread across the skyscrapers. Su-hong opened his eyes after a full night of cultivation. Fire and electricity swirled faintly around him. A notification appeared. Both techniques had successfully advanced to level 3. He checked his stats. His vitality had increased by 3 points, reaching 126. His mortal body remained at 64.6%, and his martial value points were completely used up. Later that morning, he stood outside the apartment building with his weapon over his shoulder, ready to leave for the training camp. His aunt looked at him anxiously and told him to stay safe. She added that if things didn't go well, he could always come home. His uncle quickly told her not to say things like that. He waved at Su-hong enthusiastically and told him to go win another first place. Su-hong smiled, agreed, and started walking down the quiet street. Once he was a distance away, his uncle's brave front faded. He stood there shaking slightly as he watched Su-hong leave. Tears streamed down his face. His aunt teased him, asking if he wasn't just as worried as she was. He admitted he was. He said he just didn't want Su-hong to carry their fear with him. Meanwhile, as Su Hong walked down the street, his senses picked up movement. A red sports car suddenly turned the corner and stopped sharply beside him. The window rolled down. President Wu Lingxian sat inside, wearing sunglasses. She told him to get in. Soon they were racing down the highway. Su Hong asked why she had come to pick him up personally. Without taking her eyes off the road, she said she had a few important reminders about the training camp. As president, she knew the details about the other participants. She told him that a few students were already Tier 1 high-stage martial artists and were close to Tier 2. Their martial skills were at least B rank. Su Hong listened calmly. He knew Tier 2 required 200 vitality points, which was a big gap from where he stood. Still, he wasn't worried. Even if they had B rank skills, his system would let him learn high-level techniques quickly. Wu Lingxian continued, saying that while his talent was the best she'd ever seen, he lacked the resources those wealthy students had. She added that even if he failed at camp, he shouldn't feel discouraged. Surpassing them would just be a matter of time. Su Hong thanked her sincerely and called her sister Wu. She glanced at him briefly. Even after hearing about the gap between him and the others, he remained completely calm. She figured his mindset wouldn't be a problem at all. A black van winds through the treacherous curves of the Tianlin mountain range. Inside the vehicle, Li Tu and Chen Shan leans forward in shock, saying that the training camp is set in a place where ferocious beasts gather. Principal Li calmly tells him not to worry, explaining that a grandmaster oversees the camp and ensures there is no life-threatening danger. Su Hong looks out the window at the passing landscape. He knows the Tianlin mountain range stretches across multiple cities, including Star City and Yang City. Spiritual energy is dense there, and ferocious beasts are everywhere. Deep within the mountains hide beast kings comparable to Tier 7 grandmasters. Even a Tier 1 beast on the outskirts is far more dangerous than those found elsewhere, and ordinary Tier 2 martial artists would not dare to enter lightly. The van continues forward. In the forest shadows, several pairs of glowing red eyes track the vehicle's movement. Li Tu feels that gaze and wonders if an attack is coming. Su Hong remains steady, sensing how brutal this environment is. He understands that the training camp's competition will likely resemble the beast's constant slaughter. Holding onto his seat, he feels a small smile form as he realizes he actually enjoys this kind of atmosphere. The van arrives at a fenced clearing where dozens of students have already gathered near several tents. After getting out, Chen Shan wonders aloud how strong the other participants might be. The crowd is filled with martial artists carrying various weapons. Su Hong stands among them with his own weapon slung over his shoulder. An official in a gray suit stops them and tells everyone to wait until all participants arrive before the entrance assessment begins. Hearing about an assessment, Su Hong watches as several luxury vehicles drive into the camp. A red Rolls-Royce leads the group. Some students complain about the big families arriving late. As the newcomers step out, attention quickly shifts to them. Xiao Nan, known as a spirit master, appears alongside Lin Xinghe of the Lin family, who is rumored to be close to Tier 2. At the front stands the city lord's son, Wang Tiantuo, often called the barbarian god. He possesses a special physique and extremely high fire attribute compatibility. Su Hong studies them quietly, wondering if these are the top geniuses the president mentioned. A faint smile crosses his face as he waits to see what they can really do. The official steps forward and announces the rules. The training camp lies 30 kilometers deep within the Tianlin mountain range. Certain ferocious beasts carry special tokens inside their bodies, and only those who obtain a token can enter the camp. Everyone has 8 hours to reach the destination. Whispers spread through the crowd. Going that deep means encountering powerful beasts, and if something goes wrong, people could die. While many grow uneasy, Su Hong stays calm. In his view, 8 hours is more than enough time to hunt extra beasts and earn martial value. When someone asks what happens if they run into beasts far beyond their level, the official replies that they should consider themselves unlucky and eliminated, though rescue will eventually come. Complaints immediately erupt, with students arguing that the rules are unfair and depend too much on luck. The official's expression turns cold as he reminds them that the world is not a game. On the all-heavens battlefield, a stronger expert could kill them instantly, and no one would listen to protests. If they want to survive, they must act carefully. Overpowering the weak and winning through numbers are realities of the battlefield. A student in formal attire mocks the protesters, calling them trash who should quit early. An angry student points at him and challenges him to repeat it. The mocking student responds by calling him a coward and threatening to cripple him. The official interrupts and makes it clear that violence is forbidden inside the camp itself, but once they enter the mountains, there will be no interference. Snatching tokens or settling grudges is entirely up to them. The two hostile students continue glaring at each other. Watching all this, Su-hong quickly realizes that the camp is designed to push participants into fighting. By his estimate, more than half of them will be eliminated under these rules. Another thought surfaces in his mind. Fighting these students could bring him a huge amount of martial value. The official checks his device, which lets out a loud beep. He announces the start of the assessment and orders everyone to move. The students rush forward in a chaotic wave, disappearing into the dense forest of the Tianlin mountain range. Not far inside the woods, the rivalry between the suit-wearing student and his challenger finally explodes. The student in the suit mocks his opponent and tells him to come over if he wants to be sent rolling back home. His opponent, burning with anger, shouts that if he wants to be eliminated so badly, he will grant his wish. He rushes forward with a flaming fist and yells that he is finished. The suit-wearing student answers with a punch wrapped in cold blue energy. The two forces crash into each other, triggering a violent burst of light and wind that rips through the surrounding foliage. A rapid exchange follows as blue energy surges again and again, gradually overpowering the flames in a string of heavy impacts. High above on a thick tree branch, Su-hong stands quietly, watching the fight unfold. He had wanted to witness the strength of these so-called geniuses for himself, but what he sees leaves him disappointed. The clash is flashy, yet far from impressive. In his mind, even if he defeats them, the martial value gained would be minimal. After a brief glance, he turns away, planning to hunt stronger ferocious beasts instead. Below, the suited students start mocking his opponent, saying that a pauper will always remain a pauper, and questioning what hard cultivation can achieve compared to a family's long-term accumulation. His opponent angrily tells him to shut up and stop dragging working-class people into it. The suited student laughs and repeats the insult. The words make Su-hong pause mid-step. He slowly looks back. A faint smile forms on his face as a new idea settles in. He decides that this ready-made martial value should not be wasted. He drops from the tree and lands smoothly between the two fighters. Telling them to stop fighting, he speaks in a calm and steady tone. Both students stare at him in confusion. Standing there with a thick wooden club in hand, Su-hong casually suggests that they fight him instead. The suit-wearing student grows irritated and calls him another pauper, warning that he will end up beaten as well. The other student demands to know what level he is to dare interrupt their fight. Su-hong remains relaxed and tells them they misunderstood him. He proposes that they stop fighting each other and join forces to fight him together. The blatant provocation infuriates them. The first student yells that Su-hong is courting disaster and lunges forward with a punch. In the next instant, Su-hong moves. Before the attacker can adjust, Su-hong closes the distance and delivers a crushing strike that knocks the air from his lungs. The student is flung backward and collapses after a single exchange. The suit-wearing student immediately breaks into a cold sweat. Their strengths were similar, yet his companion was defeated in one move. He finally understands how terrifying Su-hong's speed is. In the blink of an eye, Su-hong appears directly behind him and quietly tells him it is his turn. The student stiffens. A heavy swing of the wooden club follows, slamming into the side of his head. Blood sprays outward as he is knocked off his feet and sent flying, losing consciousness before he even hits the ground. Su-hong stood there calmly with the club resting on his shoulder. Looking down at the two fighters lying on the ground, he commented that this was exactly what happened when people looked down on ordinary cultivators. Far away, inside a monitoring room, several observers watched everything on a huge digital screen. One of them pointed at the display and asked where that guy had come from, saying the man had suddenly appeared and knocked out both fighters while they were still in the middle of their duel, while another observer asked if the two fighters on the ground counted as eliminated. Their leader explained that they did not. Since neither of them had asked for rescue yet, the test would keep going. Back in the forest, the cultivator in the suit slowly woke up. He held his aching face and noticed the other fighter sitting nearby. Instantly, he pushed himself backward and yelled for the man to stay away. Then he looked toward the direction Su Hong had left and cursed that guy, saying he would definitely take revenge later. The short-haired fighter also sat up, looking annoyed. He said the loss only happened because he had underestimated the opponent. In his opinion, losing to a kid like that simply didn't make sense. For a while, the two former rivals sat quietly, staring at each other. Eventually, the short-haired fighter spoke first. He apologized for what he had said earlier and admitted the other man was actually strong. The cultivator in the suit responded the same way. He said the short-haired fighter also had impressive strength and apologized for mocking him earlier. After sharing the same embarrassing defeat, the two of them shook hands. Soon they were standing with their arms around each other's shoulders, calling themselves brothers. They quickly came up with a plan for revenge. The abandoned wooden club nearby would be perfect for giving that kid a few solid hits to release their anger. Meanwhile, Su Hong ran through the forest at high speed. Suddenly, he stopped when a group of Tier 1 initial stage giant-tooth wild boars rushed out from the bushes. Seeing them again, Su Hong muttered that he had run into another pack. He wondered how many of these creatures he had already seen in the Tianlin mountain range. The boars charged toward him with heavy pounding steps. He launched his Thunder Rush fist. 9 echoes, sending yellow lightning bursting forward. The attack cut through the group in a massive X-shaped blast of energy. When the dust cleared, system messages appeared around him. Martial value +9. Martial value +7. Martial value +10. Martial value +6. Su Hong thought about how defeating martial artists used to give dozens of points. Now the rewards were getting smaller as his strength increased. He shrugged it off and decided the real goal was finding tokens. He started cutting open the boar carcasses, remembering that the dozen beasts he killed earlier hadn't carried any tokens either. After wiping the blood from his hands, he confirmed that none of them had one. Su Hong concluded that only stronger beasts probably carried tokens. Half an hour later, he moved deeper into the forest, jumping between trees while searching the area. When he first entered the 5-kilometer zone, he could find more than a dozen low-level beasts every hour. Now he couldn't see a single one. At that moment, a massive Tier 1 high-stage Nether Knight black tiger suddenly lunged out with a loud roar. Su Hong quickly avoided the attack and recognized the beast right away. Blue energy gathered around his finger as he used Void-Breaking Finger. The strike landed directly on the tiger. The beast cried out as the force smashed it into the ground, cracking the earth beneath it. To finish the fight, Su Hong thrust his spear straight into the tiger's head. A message appeared. Martial value +35. Su Hong commented to himself that with his current strength, defeating a Tier 1 high-stage beast felt extremely easy. He then searched through the tiger's stomach and finally pulled out a red and gold token covered in blood. Looking at it, Su Hong remarked that it had taken almost 3 hours just to find a single one. Thinking about it, he compared the situation. Low-level boars appeared everywhere, while high-stage beasts like this tiger were rare. The stronger beasts gave more value, but there were far fewer of them. After considering it for a moment, Su Hong decided that quantity was the better option. Hunting lots of weaker beasts near the outer areas would let him gather martial value much faster. With 5 hours left in the assessment, Su Hong headed out again. His plan was simple. Push his mortal body to its limit before time ran out, leaving behind a clearing full of blood and beast carcasses as he walked away. The forest clearing was filled with the bodies of fallen wild boars. Blood stained the ground, and the air carried the heavy scent of battle. Suddenly, a huge bear burst out with a thunderous roar and rushed straight at Su Hong. Its eyes glowed with a faint red light as it swung a massive claw toward him. The attack missed. While moving around the beast, he noted to himself that after fighting dozens of Tier 1 ferocious beasts, he had finally run into another Tier 1 middle stage one. Bright orange flames began to gather around his fist as he prepared to strike back. Su Hong jumped high into the air and drove his flaming punch straight into the bear's open mouth. Fire and force burst out at the same time. In the reflection of the bear's golden eye, Su Hong could be seen descending again for the finishing strike. He dropped down with full force, slamming his weight onto the beast. The impact shook the ground violently. Moments later, the huge body stopped moving. Su Hong stood over the defeated beast and took a moment to think. ever since his mortal body reached 60%, defeating a Tier 1 middle stage ferocious beast with pure physical strength had become possible. He glanced down at his hands and clothes, both covered in blood. Then he opened his system interface to check his progress. After calculating the numbers, Su-hong noted that he had already gained 254 martial value points. He still needed a little more than 100 points to fully max out his mortal body. Looking at the remaining time, Su-hong saw that over 3 hours were still left in the assessment. He picked up his spear, ready to continue hunting and gather enough martial value. Right then, several thunder-like booms suddenly echoed across the forest. Su-hong immediately looked toward the sky. Sweat formed on his forehead as he asked out loud what kind of noise that was. Above the forest, a massive golden bird with glowing wings flew across the sky, its enormous shadow covering the land below. Su-hong stared at it and wondered what kind of ferocious beast it could be. After watching it for a moment, he guessed that it might actually be the legendary Golden Rock Beast King. The giant bird released a sharp, piercing cry. With a powerful flap of its wings, a huge shock wave spread across the forest. Trees bent and snapped while dust rose everywhere. Su-hong planted his spear into the ground and held on tightly to keep his balance against the powerful force. Watching the scene, he commented to himself that the Beast King's strength was terrifying. Even a simple flap of its wings had created such an enormous shockwave. He looked up at the wrecked trees and broken earth, wondering what kind of fierce creature could cause that level of destruction. While watching the chaos, Su-hong quietly compared himself to the ones responsible. He had made progress lately and knew he was stronger than before. Still, when he thought about those top-tier experts, he could only admit to himself that the gap between them was enormous. In front of people like that, he felt as small as an ant. Just then, a bright ball of light drifted down from the sky, pulling his attention upward. High in the air, the Golden Rock Beast King faced a man glowing with golden energy. Tier 7 Grandmaster Qin Tianlai hovered calmly in front of it. With a steady voice, he told the rock that he, Qin Tianlai, had temporarily taken over this territory and asked why the beast had come back again. The Golden Rock answered that it had never agreed to lend the place to him in the first place. Qin Tianlai didn't seem bothered. He simply said that if the rock refused, then he would keep beating it until it changed its mind. The moment he finished speaking, he rushed forward with a powerful strike. The impact thundered across the sky. The rock cried out and flapped its wings, sending out a desperate shockwave. Qin Tianlai treated the attack like it was just noise. Golden energy burst out again and again as he launched a continuous barrage, forcing the Beast King backward. In the end, the rock had no choice but to retreat in embarrassment. As it fled, it shouted that Qin Tianlai should just wait. Qin Tianlai answered in a cold tone, telling it to stop talking nonsense and leave. After that, the Grandmaster took a slow breath and looked down at the mountains where the examinees were scattered. Using his voice to reach everyone, he announced that the students shouldn't panic and that the assessment would continue. Down below, Su-hong watched the scene with wide eyes. He couldn't help asking himself if that was really the strength of a Tier 7 human martial artist. In his heart, he quietly promised that one day he would reach that level too. Qin Tianlai soon flew back toward the monitoring base. He passed over the facility and landed smoothly. 2 Tier 5 martial artists, Lin Zhe and Bai Mu, quickly came forward to greet him. They praised his strength, saying he looked even more impressive than the rumors suggested. Qin Tianlai waved it off and told them to stop flattering him. Instead, he said they should head to the monitoring room and check which students had managed to endure the Golden Rock's pressure. Inside the monitoring room, the surveillance screens showed students scattered across the mountain. Most of them were lying on the ground after the pressure earlier. Still, a few names quickly caught Qin Tianlai's attention. He pointed to Wang Tiantuo first. The boy was a Tier 1 high-stage martial artist with a vitality of 340 and the barbarian god body. Qin Tianlai remarked that the Star City Lord, despite having more than 100 children, had finally produced one decent kid. Next, he noticed Lin Xinghe. This student was also Tier 1 high stage and had escaped the pressure by using extremely smooth movement technique. His compatibility with the wind attribute was an impressive 96%. Then there was Xiao Yan, a Tier 1 middle stage spirit master with 290 vitality. According to the data, He had used mental power to counter the pressure earlier. After looking through the information, Qin Tianlai felt somewhat disappointed. All of these talented students came from major families. He then asked if there were any notable students from the schools, especially Star City No. 1 High School. Bai Mu replied that most of those students were only at the Tier 1 initial stage. Hearing that, Qin Tianlai lost interest. He casually commented that Star City didn't seem worthy of its reputation and started preparing to leave. Suddenly, Lin Zhe called out to him from the screens. He pointed at one monitor and asked what was going on with that student. The display showed Su Hong. While many students were still recovering from the earlier pressure, Su Hong was already moving through the forest again. Not only was he standing, he had started hunting ferocious beasts as if nothing unusual had happened. Lin Zhe and Bai Mu looked stunned as they watched. They said the boy was from Star City No. 1 High School and called him a monster. Qin Tianlai picked up Su Hong's file to check the details. The moment he read it, his calm expression finally changed. In his mind, he wondered if this kid was even human after seeing the numbers. The file listed Su Hong as Tier 1 initial stage with a vitality of 123. But the report also said he had trained the C-rank Thunder Rush Fist to the perfect realm and had produced 3,004 points of combat power using only his physical strength. That level of power was already close to a Tier 1 high-stage martial artist. The next line was even more shocking. Su Hong's compatibility with 7 different attribute guidance techniques was recorded as 100%, and he was cultivating all 7 at the same time. Qin Tianlia's hands started shaking slightly. To him, it felt like he had just found a genius who might appear only once in 1,000 years. In his mind, he thought he had truly struck gold. But then he noticed something strange. He wondered why Su Hong was still only at the Tier 1 initial stage. With talent like this, his vitality being only 123 didn't make sense. Bai Mu explained that the reason was simple. Su Hong was cultivating 7 different guidance techniques at the same time. He wondered how the boy's cultivation could grow while carrying such a heavy burden. Thinking about it more, Qin Tianlai blamed Wu Linxian, the president of the Star City Martial Dao Association. In his opinion, someone should have explained this basic rule to the kid instead of letting him go down such a reckless path. At that moment, an assistant walked in and reported that the students were starting to arrive at the training camp. Hearing this, Qin Tianlai decided he might as well go see things for himself. When he arrived, he quickly met the 3 standout students, Wang Tiantua, Lin Xinghe, and Xiao Yin. The 3 of them stepped forward respectfully and bowed to him. Qin Tianlai looked them over briefly and simply said that they were doing very well. Hours passed after the assessment had begun, and the rest of the students slowly started reaching the camp. Many of them looked completely worn out. They staggered through the gates while breathing heavily, clearly relieved to have made it. 7.5 hours into the assessment, Grandmaster Qin floated high above the training grounds and looked down at the gathered students. He casually suggested ending the assessment early. In his view, anyone who still hadn't arrived probably wasn't strong enough to matter anyway. Still, his mind kept drifting back to Su Hong. He quietly wondered why that monster hadn't shown up yet. For a moment, he even worried that his newly discovered treasure might have gotten lost somewhere in the forest or been eliminated. Just as the deadline was getting close, someone finally walked out of the forest. It was Su Hong. His entire body was covered in blood. While walking toward the camp, Su Hong told himself that he had been so focused on collecting martial value that he almost forgot about the time limit. As he entered the camp, many students turned to stare at him. Some of them whispered that he looked worse than anyone else there. His clothes were soaked with blood and dirt, yet strangely enough, they couldn't spot a single wound on his body. A few students quietly wondered how many ferocious beasts he must have fought to end up looking like that. Inside the crowd, 2 students watched Su Hong with hostile expressions. One of them muttered that he had finally been waiting for that kid to show up. The other told him to relax. Once they were inside the training camp, there would be plenty of opportunities to deal with him. Not far away, the elite students also noticed Su Hong. Lin Xinghe commented that arriving right at the final moment was usually something skilled people tended to do. Xiao Yin looked at Su Hong for a moment and said the situation was starting to get interesting. Soon after, An official stepped forward and announced that the 8 hours were officially over. Anyone who hadn't arrived by now was eliminated. He then began introducing the facilities available inside the camp. First was the gravity training room. Next was the movement technique training room. Then there was the ferocious beast combat room. Finally, he pointed toward a large building and explained that it was the martial art pavilion. Inside, students could exchange for various skills, techniques, pills, and weapons, even items up to A rank. The moment Su Hong heard the words A rank, his attention sharpened. The official continued explaining that using these facilities required contribution points. Students could earn those points by completing training tasks, and those who performed especially well would receive extra rewards. Night gradually fell over the camp. The official dismissed the students who were still able to continue training, while those who were injured were guided toward the dormitories. Su Hong eventually entered his assigned living quarters. When he saw the room, he immediately felt relieved. It was a single room. That meant from now on he wouldn't have to worry about anyone noticing him while he cultivated or used his upgrade. He sat down on the bed and opened his system interface to check his current status. Martial value, 354. Su Hong had been waiting for a moment like this. Without hesitation, he decided to spend all 354 martial value points to push his mortal body to the limit. As soon as he confirmed the upgrade, a series of system notifications started appearing. Mortal body plus 0.1. His body began to glow with a deep red aura. The percentage climbed quickly. His physique surged past 70%, then 80%, then 90%, until it finally reached 100%. A final notification flashed across the interface. Mortal body 100%, evolution. At that instant, Su Hong's eyes burst with bright light as his body entered a complete transformation. His physical evolution had started. Intense red energy spread across his body, while glowing nodes appeared along his muscles and bones, mapping out the changes happening inside him, while a fierce vortex of spiritual energy spun around him. After some time, the process finally ended. Su Hong let out a long breath, faint steam rising from his newly refined body. Looking down at himself, he could clearly feel the difference. The strength flowing through his physical body was overwhelming. At that moment, the system interface appeared again. It showed that he had unlocked a new physique, called the Overlord body. The system described it as a body that possessed the strongest physical strength in the world. However, Su Hong noticed another detail. The physique currently showed spirit rank 0%, which meant it could still continue evolving. Su Hong quietly wondered what kind of unbelievable form it might turn into next. Curious to test the limits of his new body, he grabbed his jacket and picked up his black spear. But the moment his hand closed around the shaft, a sharp cracking sound came from the weapon. The metal bent and fractured right in his grip. Su Hong looked at the spear, realizing that his casual grip alone had been enough to break a C-rank alloy weapon. For a moment he felt uneasy, thinking about how expensive C-rank spears were and how he had just destroyed one. Then he remembered something important. He had actually picked up this spear for free during his time in the wilderness. Even so, it made one thing clear. His old equipment could no longer handle his strength. Su Hong decided he would need to collect camp contribution points as soon as possible so he could exchange them for an A-rank alloy spear. With that in mind, he stepped out of his room and walked into the hallway, already planning his next move. He wondered if training with a weight vest of several hundred kilograms might help him earn points quickly. Meanwhile, inside the camp warehouse, a large group of trainees had gathered around Wang Tiantua. The young martial artist was carrying a massive 3,000-kilogram weight, yet he still jumped high into the air, as if it barely affected him. Watching from the side, Lin Shanghai and Xiaonan commented that his strength was completely outrageous. They pointed out that a normal Tier 1 martial artist could only handle a small portion of that weight. In the monitoring room, Grandmaster Chen Tianli watched the live feed and praised Wang Tiantua's barbarian god body. Soon, the conversation shifted to Su Hong. Someone asked how they should deal with Su Hong's strange cultivation path, trying to practice 7 guidance techniques at the same time. Chen Tianli said dealing with a proud genius directly usually caused problems. Instead, he planned to let Su Hong realize the mistake on his own. He then asked Instructor Lindsay about the progress of a secretly arranged night raid meant to ambush the trainees. Lindsay smiled in anticipation, mentioning that many students had started relaxing after the entrance exam. The sudden attack would definitely catch them off guard. Chen Tianli gave a specific instruction for the plan. He told Lindsay to send a Tier 1 high-stage martial artist to face Su Hong during the raid. The idea was simple. Once Su Hong was completely defeated, Chen Tianli would step in and explain that his cultivation methods simply wouldn't work, forcing him to give it up. Some of the staff felt uneasy. The opponent Chen Tianli planned to send had over 400 vitality and more than 5,000 combat power. Compared to Su Hong's much lower vitality stats, the gap looked huge. They worried that such a crushing defeat might damage Su Hong's confidence. Chen Tianli dismissed the concern immediately. He said that if Su Hong's determination collapsed that easily, then he wasn't worth much anyway. At the same time, outside in the camp, Su Hong overheard several trainees talking excitedly. They were all heading to the gravity room to watch Wang Tiantua train. Not wanting to deal with the crowd, Su Hong decided to go somewhere quieter first. He walked toward the equipment warehouse, which happened to be empty at the moment, planning to check out the excitement later. Inside the equipment warehouse, Su Hong picked up a smart scoring bracelet and checked it carefully. The device showed that it was used to calculate a trainee's contribution points. He began walking around the room, passing rows of lighter training equipment. After a while, he stopped in front of another rack and looked at it with clear curiosity. The rack held several 10-ton weight vests, each one made from extremely heavy alloy. Su Hong wondered who could possibly train while wearing something that heavy. Curious about his own limits, he decided to try one on. The moment he put on the 10-ton vest, the weight pressed down on his body. Moving became much slower, and he could tell his stamina would drain quickly if he kept it on for long. After testing it for a short moment, he decided it wasn't practical for long training sessions, so he switched to a 5-ton vest instead. Su Hong jumped around the warehouse a few times to test his movement. After several quick leaps and turns, he nodded to himself. The 5-ton weight felt just right for his current physical condition. While adjusting the vest, Su Hong started thinking about the other top trainees. He wondered how much weight Wang Tiantua and the other geniuses usually trained with. Since they were already Tier 1 high-stage martial artists, he assumed they had to be at least as strong as him, maybe even stronger. Curious about their training methods, Su Hong left the warehouse to observe them. Outside, a large crowd had gathered in front of a pyramid-shaped gravity room. Many trainees were talking excitedly. They were amazed that Wang Tiantua had entered the gravity room without removing his 3-ton weight vest. A large monitor showed what was happening inside. Wang Tiantua was currently training under double gravity, and people pointed out that this effectively turned his 3-ton vest into a 6-ton load. Standing at the back of the crowd with his arms crossed, Su Hong listened to their discussion. When he heard that Wang Tiantua's base vest weighed only 3 tons, he felt genuinely surprised. Compared to the 5 tons he could comfortably wear, that number felt extremely light. At that moment, Su Hong realized something important. He had seriously underestimated how powerful his newly evolved overlord body had become. He then walked over to 2 familiar faces from his old school, Chen Shan and Li Zi, and asked why they weren't going inside the gravity room to cultivate. Both of them looked discouraged. They explained that the gap between them and the top geniuses was too large. Training there while everyone watched would only invite comparisons, and they didn't want the embarrassment. Su Hong gave a quiet sigh and patted one of them on the shoulder. From his point of view, letting pride and fear stop them from training was simply a waste of time. Even when they told him to wait until the crowd left, Su Hong didn't listen. He walked straight toward the brightly lit pyramid-shaped gravity room. The moment people noticed him approaching, the crowd started talking again. Some of them mocked him, assuming he wanted to challenge Wang Tiantua's record. Several trainees joked that he was being arrogant, especially since it didn't look like he was wearing any kind of weight suit. Su Hong ignored all of it and stepped through the entrance. As he walked inside, he quietly thought about how expensive facilities like this were usually limited to elite aristocratic families. Since he had access to it now, he had no intention of wasting the opportunity. Inside the high-tech training room, Su Hong calmly considered his limit. Under his tracksuit, he was secretly wearing the 5-ton weight vest. If he set the gravity to double, the pressure on his body would reach 10 tons, which he estimated he could only endure for about 10 minutes. Instead of pushing too hard at the start, he decided to pace himself. So he adjusted the control dial to 1.5 times normal gravity. The pressure increased instantly. A heavy invisible force pressed down on his entire body, and Su-hong let out a low grunt while adjusting his stance. Outside, the crowd watched everything through the monitor. Since they didn't know he was wearing the 5-ton vest, they thought he was training with no extra weight. Seeing him struggle under just 1.5 times gravity, many of them started laughing. Some of them mocked him openly, saying he couldn't even handle such a basic setting. Others pointed out that he had been the last person to finish the entrance assessment, which only reinforced their belief that he was weak. Inside the room, Su-hong paid no attention to any of that. He sat cross-legged on the floor and began cultivating, a fiery red aura slowly rising around him. He soon noticed that the intense gravity made it much harder to circulate his guidance technique. However, the pressure also pushed his body to adapt faster, and his cultivation speed increased significantly. For 2 full hours, Su-hong stayed seated in the gravity room, continuing his training. Sweat soaked his clothes as he pushed his body further, while his eyes carried a faint blue glow. The effort paid off. When he checked his system panel, he saw that his water, earth, and wind guidance techniques had each increased by 1 level. His vitality had also risen from 126 to 130. Finally, Su-hong stood up and turned off the gravity machine. The effectiveness of the room impressed him. As he walked toward the exit, he started thinking about how useful the camp's movement technique room and ferocious beast training room might be. Completely exhausted, Su-hong stepped out of the facility. Sweat covered his face, and he wiped it away as he walked forward. 2 trainees who had been waiting nearby immediately started mocking him again. They still believed he had trained under 1.5 times gravity without any weight. One of them laughed at his tired appearance and bragged that he could easily sleep overnight under those conditions. Su-hong didn't bother arguing with them. Instead, he casually complained about how hot the room had been and how uncomfortable his gear felt. While saying that, he unzipped his tracksuit. Underneath it, the massive 5-ton weight vest became clearly visible. The 2 trainees stopped talking the moment they saw it. Their eyes stayed fixed on the heavy equipment that had been hidden under his clothes the entire time. The 2 trainees had been watching when Su-hong finally took off his weight vest. They assumed it was only around 500 kilograms. They admitted he did okay lasting that long, but still talked like he wasn't anything special. As he let the vest drop to the ground, they casually said he couldn't even compare to the camp's top genius, Wang Tanhua. Right then, the crowd suddenly got noisy. Someone pointed out that Wang Tanhua had just come out of the gravity room. People immediately started talking, saying he had endured 6 tons of pressure for more than 2 hours. Wang Tanhua walked out drenched in sweat, breathing heavily, while others praised him as the strongest in the entire training camp. He took off his heavy vest and tossed it aside without much care. The moment it hit the ground, the impact made the floor shake, startling the trainees nearby. Wang Tanhua rolled his shoulder a bit, looking relieved, and mentioned that the weight had been seriously exhausting. Lin Xingyi walked up, casually fanning himself, and suggested they compete in the movement technique room. Wang Tanhua shook his head right away, saying Lin Xingyi practiced an A-rank wind movement technique, and going against him in speed would just be asking to lose. Su-hong, standing nearby, caught that part of the conversation and became interested the moment he heard A-rank movement technique. He figured that even though his overlord body had given him huge raw strength, his speed and agility still needed work. With that in mind, he smiled slightly, seeing a good chance to improve. He followed the crowd to a dome-shaped training room, curious to see the A-rank Flying Swan's startling cloud step in action. Inside, everyone was focused on the monitors. Some trainees commented that Lin Xingyi had set the arrow dodging simulation all the way to level 10, the highest difficulty. On the screen, Lin Xingyi moved incredibly fast, weaving through a non-stop storm of arrows with ease. His movements looked smooth and controlled, and at one point, he even closed his eyes midair while avoiding the attack. At the same time, pink petals seemed to drift around him, adding a dramatic flair that left the audience staring in amazement. Watching quietly, Su-hong commented that the technique was impressive. Almost immediately, his system interface popped up in front of him. It showed that just by observing, he had already copied the Flying Swan's startling cloud step and unlocked it at 1% proficiency. Su-hong studied Lin Xingyi's movements more carefully, then stepped forward, planning to try it himself. His action caught people's attention right away. Some of the trainees started laughing, saying it was ridiculous that he thought he could pick up such a complicated A-rank movement technique after seeing it just once. Su-hong paid no attention to the mocking voices around him. Instead, his awareness shifted into the system's virtual training space, where he faced a simulated version of Lin Shingi. Inside that space, he trained non-stop, weaving through fast and relentless attacks while adjusting his movements again and again. As the practice continued, his mastery of the technique climbed rapidly, jumping from 8% all the way up to 93% in a short time. Soon, the system sent him a notification, letting him know he had officially reached the basic level of the skill. Su-hong stood there, clearly pleased. He had just secured his first A-rank movement technique. As the system prepared to pull him back to reality, he quietly noted that copying Lin Shingi's flashy style as a reference felt a bit over the top. Once he returned, he decided he was done with the movement technique room. He figured his next stop would be the ferocious beast room, where he could hunt and earn martial value while boosting his vitality. But as he started thinking about it, he noticed something strange. The entire crowd was staring at him, some even holding up their phones and commenting on how dramatic his movements looked. That's when Su-hong realized what had happened. While he had been training inside the virtual space, his real body had been copying all those exaggerated movements in front of everyone. Not wanting to deal with that attention, he immediately took off at full speed, ignoring people calling out for him to do it again. At the same time, he decided he wouldn't use Lin Shingi's style as a reference like that again. As he moved away, his senses picked up something unusual. Someone was following him. A short distance behind, the suited student carried a wooden club, while the rugged student from the entrance assessment walked beside him. The two had been tracking Su-hong and had already guessed he was heading toward the ferocious beast room. They quietly planned to block his exit later and deal with him when he came out. When Su-hong arrived at the large facility, he saw a crowd gathered near the entrance. Not far from the doors, Wang Tanhua and Xian were in the middle of a tense exchange. Wang Tanhua laughed and said Xian wanted to compete with him in beast hunting to decide who the top trainee really was. He then asked if she seriously thought her spiritual telekinesis could stand against his barbarian god body. Xian responded without hesitation, saying he was the one underestimating the power of a spirit master. Hearing that, Su-hong became curious. It was a fighting style he hadn't seen before, so he decided to hold off on earning points for now and watch her first. Through the observation window, he saw a simulated forest environment, and then something unexpected. Xian was slowly descending from the air toward a group of black tigers. Su-hong watched closely, noting that walking through the air like that was usually something only high-level grandmasters could do. He figured this must be part of a spirit master's ability. With a simple motion of her glowing hand, Xian activated her power. Thin streaks of golden light shot forward instantly, piercing through the heads of 3 high-stage Tier 1 black tigers at the same time. The beasts dropped immediately. Su-hong focused on the attack, trying to understand what that strange flowing light really was. Then, a massive bear-like creature wrapped in a red aura charged from behind her. Before it could get close, it suddenly stopped mid-movement, as if held in place by something invisible. Xian had used her telekinesis to lift and lock the creature in the air. With another calm gesture, the golden light shot forward again, piercing straight through its head. Watching closely, Su-hong finally figured it out. The streaks of light were actually daggers being controlled from a distance by her mind. He quickly understood the advantage. A spirit master could move through the air, restrain enemies, and attack from afar all at once. Against ordinary martial artists, that kind of ability gave a huge edge. As everyone continued watching, someone suddenly pointed at the screen, asking about a massive weapon that had just appeared. The display showed Xian facing a giant snake beast. Out of nowhere, a huge golden sword formed in front of her. With a simple downward motion of her arm, the blade dropped and cut the creature cleanly in half. Su-hong studied the scene carefully. He noted that she hadn't been holding any weapon before, and something that large should have been far too heavy to use so easily. At that moment, Lin Shingi walked over, still casually fanning himself. He explained that the giant sword wasn't a physical weapon, but an advanced A-rank martial skill used by spirit masters. The crowd reacted immediately, surprised to hear about another A-rank skill. Someone then asked Lin Shingi how all the top trainees seemed to have such rare techniques, and whether Wang Tanhua had one too. Lin Xingyi confirmed that Wang Tanhua did possess a powerful A-rank offensive skill, which made the surrounding trainees comment on how overwhelming the top elites were. Su Hong, however, reacted differently. Instead of feeling pressured, he smiled slightly. To him, the camp looked full of valuable techniques his system could copy, and that made the whole place even more worthwhile. On the monitor, Wang Tanhua was shown defeating a high-stage Tier 1 beast with a single punch. It was clear he was relying purely on raw strength, without using any martial skills. Seeing that, Su Hong turned away, deciding to wait for a better chance to observe him later. Inspired by Xian's display, he opened his system panel and checked his stat. His spirit attribute was at 26.5, and he noted that reaching 100 was required to become a spirit master. That left a gap of 73.5 points. After a quick calculation, he figured he needed 735 martial value points to close that gap. Blue energy gathered in his hand as he made up his mind. He was going to hunt beasts and collect everything he needed. Meanwhile, the suited student and the rugged student were still watching him from a distance. They saw him enter one of the testing arenas inside the facility. With most people focused on Wang Tanhua and Xian, they realized no one would pay attention. They quietly agreed this was the perfect chance to corner him. Just as they were about to move, the rugged student suddenly reacted loudly. The suited student quickly signaled for him to stay quiet. The rugged one then pointed toward the large monitor above the entrance. Both of them looked up, and immediately froze in place, staring at the screen. Inside the arena, Su Hong stood calmly, surrounded by a group of ferocious beasts. A towering red-eyed bear, several massive armored scorpions, and multiple stone-skinned creatures. In the corridors of the training camp, where two students observed the monitoring screens with growing dread. The suited student, gripping a wooden club, asks if they should find an instructor to save the boy inside, fearing he will definitely die. The rugged student replies coldly that it is already too late. He believes the kid will be torn to shreds in seconds, lamenting that they no longer have a way to get their revenge. Inside the combat arena, Su Hong stands composed amidst a swirling haze of dust. He stares down the unseen threats and issues a calm challenge. "Come on!" A massive scorpion-like beast immediately responds with a deafening roar, lunging from the shadows. Su Hong dodges the strike with a fluid movement technique, leaving a trail of afterimages as he surges forward. His hands ignite with brilliant blue energy, and he tears through a pack of beasts with blinding speed. Back in the observation room, the suited student watches the screen in disbelief. He questions if he is dreaming, wondering how a Tier 1 initial stage martial artist could perform such a feat. He notes that even a middle stage martial artist would die if surrounded by over a dozen high stage ferocious beasts. As Su Hong continues his assault, the suited student's eyes widen. He recognizes the footwork as Lin Xinghe's flying swan startling cloud step, an A-rank movement technique. The rugged student is equally shocked, pointing out that as a number 1 high school student, Su Hong shouldn't have access to such high-grade technique. He speculates that Su Hong might be from a great family or, even more impossibly, learned the technique just by watching Lin Xinghe. The suited student admits that mastering an A-rank technique so quickly is heaven-defying. Seeing this, the rugged student suggests they forget their revenge, but the suited student grips his club, his face contorted as he refuses to swallow his anger. However, the rugged student urges his friend to look at the screen one more time, showing Su Hong sitting atop a massive carcass. He has killed 11 high-stage ferocious beasts in just a few minutes. Su Hong checks his system interface, which notifies him that over a dozen Tier 1 high-stage beasts yielded a total of 81 martial value points, averaging only 7 points each. He sighs, realizing that the stronger he becomes, the harder it is to earn martial value. The respite is short-lived as more red-eyed monsters emerge. Su Hong stands, declaring there is no time to rest. A wolf-like beast lunges from above, but Su Hong meets it with his Vajra fist. A golden shockwave erupts on impact, rattling the chamber. The remaining beasts, including massive scorpions and tigers, begin to retreat in fear. Su Hong's eyes glow with blue light as he smirks, demanding they hand over all their martial value. He leaps into pursuit, grabbing a scorpion and smashing it into the others with overwhelming force. In the hallway, the suited student's rage has turned to hollow acceptance. He rhetorically asks when the cycle of vengeance will end and declares he has decided to forgive Su Hong. The rugged student quickly agrees, suggesting they slip away before the monster beats them up too. They exit the corridor just as a crowd of students gathers to welcome the elite. The crowd discusses the top scores. Wang Tiantua killed 9 high-stage beasts in under 10 minutes, while Xiao Yan killed 8 while standing completely still. When a student asks the rugged and suited pair if they got their revenge, the suited student laughs nervously, pretending they did. Internally, they both know that if they hadn't backed off, they would be lying on the ground like dead dogs. The 3 top elites, Wang Tiantua, Xiao Yan, and Lin Xinghe, then emerge. Wang Tiantua reports 280 points, while Xiao Yan reveals she earned 270. The crowd is stunned, calculating they must have killed 50 or 60 beasts each. Other students mourn their own scores of 50, 20, or even 10 points. When asked who won the hunting competition, Xiao Yan points to Lin Xinghe. The students conclude that they can only hope for 4th place with those 3 around. The rugged and suited students watch from a distance, mocking the ignorance of the crowd. They know there is an even more terrifying monster in the camp standing above the top 3. 1 hour later, the truth is revealed in the artificial forest. The training area is a blood-soaked graveyard of countless beasts, left in the wake of Su Hong's devastating session. Su Hong exhales a heavy breath, wiping sweat from his forehead after continuously killing ferocious beasts for over an hour. Even with his overlord body, the prolonged combat has left him feeling exhausted. He looks down at his wrist interface, reflecting that he is still far from his goal of 735 martial value points. A system notification appears on the screen, detailing his gains. 400 contribution points from hunting and 300 from his weight vest, totaling 700 points. He wonders what he can exchange for at the Martial Art Pavilion. Inside the traditional architecture of the Martial Art Pavilion, Su Hong stands at a counter, meticulously browsing through a catalog while an attendant looks on. He scans the prices for various Tier 1 pills, noting vitality pills for 10 points and spirit-gathering pills ranging from 30 to 50 points. His attention then turns to the A-rank martial arts section, where techniques like Explosive Palm, Bone Netherfire Fist, and Startling Swan Heavenly Roam cost between 2,000 and 3,000 points. He realizes that while A-rank arts are expensive, with the cheapest at 2,000 points, the prices for pills are acceptable, especially given the presence of spirit-gathering pills. The attendant rests her head on her hand, watching him with a bored expression. She asks if he has decided what to exchange for, privately assuming that as a Tier 1 initial stage student, he won't be able to afford anything. Su Hong asks if the spirit-gathering pills listed are the kind that increase spiritual power. She confirms they are, explaining they are only effective when taken for the first time and that higher grades provide better improvement. She notes that the highest grade available is Tier 4 for 500 contribution points. Su Hong looks at the Tier 4 list, seeing Vitality Pills for 100 points and Spirit Gathering Pills for 300 and 500 points. Su Hong points a finger and requests a Tier 4 Spirit Gathering Pill. The attendant reacts with a shocked awe, and quickly reminds him that a Tier 4 pill costs 500 points, not 50. Su Hong calmly reaffirms his request for the Tier 4 pill. When he presents his wrist interface, it scans with a beep, revealing a full balance of 700 points. The attendant is stunned, unable to believe he has so many points. Her attitude shifts immediately to one of cheerful enthusiasm as she presents the pill box, happily calling him handsome as she thanks him for his patronage. Su Hong then asks if they have any dual thunder and fire attribute alloy spears. She confirms they have them for 200 points. The scene transitions to Su Hong's dormitory later that night. Mounted on the wall are his new weapons. A pair of C-rank dual thunder and fire attribute spears, known as Thunder Fire Spears, tipped with red tassels. Su Hong sits on his bed, viewing his updated status window. His vitality has reached 135 and his spirit is at 26.5. His overlord body physique is at 1% spirit rank. His guidance techniques for thunder and heavenly fire have reached level 4, while water marsh, thick earth, and spirit wind are at level 3. Su Hong notes that the improvement from this single day is greater than what he achieved in an entire previous week. He calculates that with his spiritual power at 26.5 and his 490 martial value points, he is still 25.5 points short of the 100-point mark. He opens a box to reveal a glowing golden pill resting on a red cushion. Holding the pill up, he expresses his hope that it will provide the 25.5 spiritual power improvement he needs. He places the pill in his mouth, his eyes filled with resolve as he declares his absolute determination to become a spirit master. The moment the glowing, green, pearl-like pill activated, Su Hong felt it kick in instantly. A stream of vivid green energy spread through his body, lighting up his internal pathways like neon wiring. The tension in his nerves melted away, and the exhaustion he'd been carrying just faded. Sitting cross-legged on his bed, he let his mind settle. As things cleared up, his senses stretched outward, quietly mapping out every corner of the room. When he finally opened his eyes, they shimmered with a bright blue glow. Checking his system, he saw the update. His spirit stat had jumped by 24 points, landing at 50.5. He did the math in his head and realized he was frustratingly close. With 490 martial value points and his new stat boost, he'd only reached 99.5%. Just 5 points short. He couldn't help but think he should have taken down one more beast earlier. Now, there was nothing to do but wait until tomorrow. With a quiet sigh, he lay back down to rest. Meanwhile, over in the brightly lit warehouse, the camp staff had gathered. Instructors dressed in dark uniforms stood around, going over trainee profiles and trading opinions. One of them questioned why someone from the prestigious Martial Dao University had been assigned to work with new recruit. Bu Jingfang didn't hold back. He reportedly scoffed and dismissed the trainees as fake geniuses, saying they weren't even worthy of being his high school sparring partners. That comment got a reaction. A bald instructor laughed and pulled up Wang Tinto's profile, pointing out that the guy had a vitality of 340, something Bu Jingfang himself had never reached. That clearly caught him off guard. Then a gray-haired instructor added that Lin Xingyi's vitality was over 300, and another chimed in that his own student was already a spirit master. Now Bu Jingfang looked confused. He pointed out that his assigned target, Su Hong, only had a vitality of 123. He questioned why he got stuck with someone so weak while everyone else had strong trainees. The others found that odd too, considering Bu Jingfang was the strongest among them. Some even wondered out loud if Grandmaster Qin Tianli had made a mistake. Perfect timing. Qin Tianli walked in with Linda and Ba, immediately shutting that down. He made it clear there was no mistake. Bu Jingfang, clearly annoyed, complained that the assignment felt insulting. In response, the Grandmaster explained that Su Hong's actual combat power could rival a high-stage Tier 1 martial artist. That statement hit the room like a shockwave. The instructors couldn't wrap their heads around it. How could someone with just 123 vitality be that strong? Qin Tianli simply said some details were classified and told Bu Jingfang he'd understand once they fought. Still not impressed, Bu Jingfang reportedly sighed and said that with his own vitality nearing 500, this whole thing felt like straight-up bullying. That earned him a sharp smack on the head. The Grandmaster, visibly irritated, told him to stop talking and focus on the mission. He ordered him to go all out, no holding back, and beat Su Hong until he started questioning his life choices. Rubbing his head, Bu Jingfang asked if the Grandmaster had some kind of grudge, adding that he wouldn't take responsibility if he accidentally crippled the kid. In response, Qin Tianli reportedly grinned and told him to go as ruthless as he wanted, even promising rewards if things got that far. At that point, Bu Jingfang was all in. With the order given, the operation began. The instructors moved out fast, launching their ambush under the cover of night. Outside, the camp sat quiet under a light layer of snow, calm for about 5 seconds. Then chaos exploded inside the dorms. Masked instructors smashed through doors, catching trainees completely off guard. Panic spread instantly. Shouts, confusion, people scrambling, some literally yelling for a second to get dressed. Su Hong woke up the moment the noise hit. Sitting up, he quickly figured the camp was under attack. His eyes locked onto his door just as 2 massive slash marks ripped through it from the outside. A second later, the door burst apart. Bu Jingfang stepped in, sword in hand, its blade glowing with a deep purple energy. He wore a confident smirk like this was going to be easy. Without hesitation, he unleashed a cross-shaped strike that tore through the floor. Su Hong reacted instantly, jumping back as the attack shattered the ground where he'd been. As debris scattered, Su Hong recalled rumors about assassins targeting camps like this. For a second, he wondered if this guy was one of them. Landing smoothly, he grabbed his new spear and took a defensive stance in the rec room. The attacker was masked, and Su Hong couldn't yet read his strength. Bu Jingfang didn't give him time to think. He leaped forward again, bringing down a massive arc of purple energy. Mid-attack, he mocked Su Hong, reportedly calling him an unlucky Tier 1 brat. That voice, and the aura behind it, gave it away. Su Hong quickly realized this wasn't some alien assassin. Just a human, a Tier 1 martial artist. And weirdly enough, that made him smile. He saw it as pure luck. If he could defeat this guy, those missing 5 martial value points would be his. That final push right within reach. Up in the air, Bu Jingfang suddenly noticed something was off. Instead of dodging, Su Hong stepped forward, charging straight into the attack. Their weapons slammed into each other in a blinding flash, Su Hong's spear meeting Bu Jingfang's purple energy blade head-on. The impact wasn't clean. It dragged. Bu Jingfang strained almost immediately, his grip tightening as sweat started to form. He reportedly admitted, if only in his own head, that the Grandmaster hadn't been exaggerating. The kid's strength really did match a high-stage Tier 1 martial artist. And then it got worse. As the clash dragged on, he began to panic. It wasn't just skill. Su Hong's raw physical power felt overwhelming, way beyond what a normal Tier 1 should have. Meanwhile, Su Hong stayed completely calm. A red aura flared around his body, and he steadily pushed forward with his spear like he had all the time in the world. Then came the shift. With a sharp battle cry, he unleashed his full strength and swept his spear upward. The move shattered Bu Jingfang's defense instantly, sending him flying back like he'd just been swatted away. Bu Jingfang skidded across the ground, barely holding onto his sword, his arms trembling from the impact. For a second, he just stared, visibly shaken. He reportedly wondered what exactly he was dealing with, because trainee didn't seem like the right word anymore. Still, he forced himself back up. Purple flames ignited along his blade as he steadied his breathing. He declared, more to himself than anyone, that fights weren't decided by strength alone. If power wasn't enough, then technique would be. Su Hong watched the flames with clear interest. It was his first time seeing a fire attribute martial art in action. At the same time, golden lightning began to crackle around his spear. Now things were getting loud. The purple flames intensified as Bu Jingfang gathered power, then he launched himself into the air. A glowing purple cross formed around his blade as he prepared his attack. He reportedly taunted Su Hong midair, challenging him to survive a B-rank martial art. Then he brought it down. The flaming slash tore through the air with serious weight behind it. Su Hong didn't flinch. He braced himself, channeling lightning through his spear. He could tell instantly, this attack was stronger than his own B-rank void-breaking finger technique. Still, he didn't dodge. Instead, he thrust his spear upward, meeting the attack directly. The collision of lightning and flame triggered a massive explosion. The floor shattered, chunks of concrete blasted outward, and the entire room shook like it might collapse. Then, silence. As the dust slowly settled, Su Hong landed lightly on his feet, completely steady. When the smoke cleared, he stood there untouched, spear still in hand like nothing had happened. Across from him, Bu Jingfang stared, stunned. Looking down at the wrecked dorm, he realized what had just happened. Su Hong had blocked a B-rank martial art using nothing but raw thunder energy. No formal technique, just power and control. At that point, it clicked. He finally understood why the Grandmaster had told him to go all out. Still, he tried to recover some dignity. He pointed out that Su Hong didn't have any proper thunder spear techniques, reportedly claiming that without them, he'd eventually lose. Su Hong just smirked. Lightning crackled louder along his spear as he casually admitted that, yeah, he didn't have any thunder techniques. But then, red flames suddenly ignited around the spearhead, and instead of clashing, the fire merged smoothly with the golden lightning, wrapping together in perfect sync. Now the aura around him burned in 2 colors, fire and lightning intertwined. He stood there, completely composed. Bu Jingfang, on the other hand, froze. He stared, wide-eyed and sweating, reportedly unable to believe what he was seeing. The trainee in front of him had just pulled off a flawless attribute fusion, something far beyond basic skill. At that point, unlucky Tier 1 brat was officially off the table. Su Hong stood facing Bu Jingfang, his spear now blazing with a wild mix of fire and lightning. Bu Jingfang could only stare. He was visibly sweating, shaken as he realized the fusion wasn't some myth after all. It was right in front of him, and it was coming at him fast. Su Hong's eyes burned with heat as he suddenly lunged forward. Bu Jingfang reacted on instinct, swinging his blade and releasing a surge of purple energy to intercept. It didn't go well. The 2 attacks collided hard, but Su Hong pushed straight through. His spear drove forward, and the combined fire and lightning erupted outward in a violent burst that swallowed Bu Jingfang completely. The impact shattered his defense instantly. He coughed up blood mid-blast, the force overwhelming him as he got launched backward like he'd been hit by a cannon. A second later, he crashed straight through the outer wall of the building, exploding out into the open in a storm of debris. Inside the ruined dorm, the dust slowly settled. Su Hong stood there, completely unharmed, spear still humming with fading energy. Then came the system notification. He'd gained 7 martial value points. That did it. He checked immediately, confirming his total had reached 497. Close enough. The gap was gone. A small smile formed. He finally had what he needed to become a spirit master. Out in the courtyard, the sounds of destruction echoed from the dorm building. Grandmaster Qin Tianli arrived with Ba Mu, calmly observing the situation. At first, he didn't think much of it. He casually assumed enough time had passed for Bu Jingfang to finish the job. In fact, he reportedly mentioned he'd already prepared a whole speech to fix Su Hong's cultivation path and make him drop that chaotic multi-technique approach. Yeah, that speech didn't make it very far. A massive explosion cut him off mid-thought. Bu Jingfang came flying out from the upper level of the dorm like a human projectile, crashing down hard right in front of them. He hit the ground with a heavy slam, completely unconscious, blood trailing from his mouth. Ba Mu gasped the moment she recognized him. Qin Tianli didn't say anything at first. He just stared. His earlier confidence? Gone. Ba Mu quickly pieced it together in her head. If Bu Jingfang was the one lying there, then the only possibility was that Su Hong had beaten him. Before that realization could even settle, 3 more explosions tore through the upper floors. Boom, boom, boom. 3 more figures were blasted into the night sky, each trailing different elemental energy before crashing down into the courtyard beside Bu Jingfang. The rest of the instructors, all unconscious, all wrecked. Up above, 3 figures appeared from the ruined building: Wang Tianyuo, Xian, and Lin Xingyi. The top trainees looked completely fine. Wang Tianyuo crossed his arms and casually called down, reportedly suggesting the Grandmaster send stronger opponents next time because those instructors were too weak. Then he paused. Something didn't add up. There were 4 bodies down there, not 3. Lin Xingyi, clearly misreading the situation, casually assumed the 4th trainee must have been weak and got taken out instantly. Ba Mu, still staring at Bu Jingfang's broken form, mentally rejected that idea immediately. She knew better. Out of all 4 instructors, Bu Jingfang was the strongest, which made this whole situation a lot more unsettling. Qin Tianli stroked his beard, analyzing everything. The victories of the top 3 made sense. They were elite for a reason. But Su Hong? An early stage Tier 1 beating someone nearly at Tier 2, and doing it faster? That didn't line up. He frowned, clearly deep in thought, reportedly wondering what kind of hidden factor was at play. A secret technique? Some rare physique? Then suddenly, Instructor Lindsay came sprinting in, completely panicked, shouting that something major had happened. Qin Tianli didn't even flinch at first. He waved a hand dismissively, calmly assuming it was just a casualty. He reportedly said that a few deaths were normal in this kind of harsh training. Lindsay quickly shut that down. Breathing hard, he clarified that no one had died, but Su Hong had used an elemental fusion during his fight. Qin Tianli nodded casually at first, saying that would explain how he beat a stronger opponent. Then it hit him. He froze. A split second later, his aura exploded outward in blazing gold. He grabbed Lindsay by the shoulders and demanded he repeat that, making it very clear he wasn't in the mood for jokes about something that ridiculous. Lindsay, clearly nervous now, insisted it was real. He said he'd seen the monitor feed himself, Su Hong wielding a spear wrapped in both fire and lightning. He even suggested asking Bu Jingfang if there were still doubts. Slowly, Qin Tianli looked down at the unconscious instructor. And it clicked. The fusion was real. His entire demeanor flipped, grabbing Lindsay again, this time with pure excitement. He reportedly pointed out that the only known genius to ever achieve dual attribute fusion had taken over a decade to figure it out. And Su Hong? Less than a month. That contrast hit different. Qin Tianli burst into laughter, openly calling Su Hong a heaven-sent prodigy, a true dragon among men. At that point, Lindsay was completely drained and had to be held up by Bamu, who looked just as stunned. Still trying to process it, she asked if attribute fusion was really that powerful, enough for someone at early Tier 1 to defeat an opponent nearly at Tier 2. Qin Tianli steadied himself and confirmed it. He explained that the original pioneer of the technique had been able to suppress Tier 2 opponents while still at Tier 1. That answer only raised more questions. Ba Mu, now clearly intrigued, reportedly asked why something that powerful wasn't widely taught. Even if it was difficult, the payoff sounded too massive to ignore. Qin Tianli's expression turned serious as he explained the reality behind attribute fusion. He reportedly said that plenty of people had tried it before, but most either failed miserably or ended up crippling themselves in the process. And even in the rare cases where someone actually succeeded, it usually wasn't worth it. He added that many of those who pulled it off got stuck at Tier 1 forever, unable to progress any further. So after all that risk and effort, they basically hit a dead end. Not exactly a glowing review. But then, his tone flipped again. Clenching his fist as a faint aura flared, he pointed out the one detail that changed everything. Su Hong had done it in less than a month. Yeah. That part hit different. He reportedly marveled at Su Hong's absurd level of comprehension, then started wondering out loud just how far this could go. If the boy could fuse 2 elements this quickly, what would happen if he managed all 7? And just like that, his imagination ran wild. Spreading his arms dramatically, Qin Tianli painted a full-on cinematic vision. Su Hong, fully matured, wielding a blinding storm of all 7 elements fused together, dropping a single, catastrophic strike that wipes out a massive alien emperor. Complete annihilation. Behind him, Lin and Bamu just froze for a second. Then came the sweat drop. They awkwardly pointed out that he might be getting a bit carried away. Sure, fusing 2 elements was already insane, but all 7? That was basically fantasy territory. Realizing he might have gone a little too far, Qin Tianli coughed and brushed it off, telling them to forget what he just said. But then his expression shifted again, this time more grounded. He admitted that this situation came with serious responsibility. If Su Hong kept trying to juggle all 7 attributes on his own, there was a real risk he'd hit a wall, especially when attempting a third fusion, and potentially ruin his future. And if that happened? He reportedly said he'd be the one to blame, a sinner to humanity for failing to guide someone like that properly. Yeah, pressure just skyrocketed. Right then, Lindsay suddenly blurted out another realization, almost like he'd just unlocked a second layer of the problem. He pointed out that Su Hong must also have some kind of special physique, since his raw physical strength alone had already overwhelmed Bu Jingfang before even using attribute fusion. Qin Tianli turned and immediately scolded him for not mentioning that earlier. The instructors quickly started breaking it down. Lindsay noted that Su Hong, with a base vitality of around 120, had completely crushed Bu Jingfang, who was pushing close to 500. That gap wasn't normal. Not even close. They compared it to Wang Tianyuo's elite barbarian god body, and concluded that Su Hong's physical amplification was on an entirely different level. At that point, calling it monstrous felt like an understatement. Qin Tianli looked back toward the damaged dorm, clearly thinking things through. Then he made a call. He declared that the next day, he'd organize a proper combat tournament. No more guessing, he wanted real data. The plan was simple. Test Su Hong's true combat power and limits directly. And for opponents? He wasn't holding back. He decided to pit Su Hong against the camp's top 3 elite trainees, Wang Tianyuo, Lin Xingyi, and Xian. All at once. With a sharp glint in his eyes, he reportedly said he wanted to personally see what would happen when a monster like Su Hong collided head-on with the strongest geniuses the camp had to offer. Safe to say, tomorrow wasn't going to be quiet. Su Hong sat quietly in the rec room, meditating among the scattered debris. The noise and chatter outside didn't bother him at all. His focus stayed locked on improving himself. Wanting to move forward, he opened his system and poured all his martial value into his spirit stat. A bright blue aura surrounded him as he stepped into the spirit realm. He shut his eyes, taking in the feeling of this new power. When he tried it out, a glowing phantom fist appeared. Controlling it felt a little unusual, like getting used to an extra limb. With a bit of effort, He checked his inner interface and saw that his spirit stat had passed the 100% mark. Curious about how it worked in reality, he turned his attention to his bed and lifted it effortlessly with a single thought. Excitement showed on his face as he rose into the air along with his spear. He realized he could now move through the air and use telekinetic attacks just like Xian. With that in mind, he decided he would copy Xian's A-rank spirit martial art and Wang Tiantua's offensive technique. The next morning, an urgent announcement told everyone to gather within a minute, warning that latecomers would lose points. Trainees rushed downstairs in a hurry, complaining loudly about how intense the schedule had been. They said they had already gone through the entry assessment, tough training, and even a night raid, all in a single day. Soon, a large crowd formed in the courtyard. Su Hong showed up at a relaxed pace, stretching as if nothing from the previous night had bothered him. Instructor Linda stood in front of the group and said with a smile that he had expected many of them to still be too worn out to even stand, adding that they had done well to make it. One rugged-looking trainee argued that he had only lost because of a cheap sneak attack. He claimed he hadn't even had time to get dressed and complained that the attack had gone straight for a sensitive spot. Linda responded with a sarcastic tone, asking if he really expected an alien assassin to wait for him to get ready before striking. His friend laughed and jokingly called him, Bro Underpants. From where he stood, Su Hong found himself agreeing with Linda's point about real combat, though he also understood why everyone looked so drained. Noticing the mood, Lindsay announced that there would be a full test to give everyone a fair chance to prove themselves. He explained that an automated system would measure their vitality, combat power, spirit, strength, speed, and martial skills. Wang Tiantua, Xian, and Lin Xing listened with confidence, already seen as the top 3. Lindsay added that there would also be a combat ranking, and the top 10 would earn daily contribution points based on their position. The trainees immediately grew excited. Most of them already expected the top 3 spots to go to the elites, so they focused on fighting for the remaining 7. Su Hong felt curious and wondered what kind of reward first place would bring. As the crowd got louder, Lindsay quieted them and led everyone to the testing facility, a massive warehouse. Inside, he stood on a stage next to a mechanical, spider-like device known as a Tier 2 combat power tester. As everyone settled, Grandmaster Qin Tianli carefully observed the group, noting that his target was blending in perfectly. A bandaged trainee standing near Su Hong assumed the Grandmaster was looking at him because of his potential. Su Hong glanced at him and told him plainly that he had the wrong idea. Feeling the Grandmaster's gaze, Su Hong started to feel uneasy, knowing he was the real focus. Qin Tianli then addressed everyone and announced a new grand prize. Whoever ranked first overall could choose an A-rank martial art or movement technique. The crowd reacted instantly, buzzing with excitement. People started talking about how the top 3 elites would now compete seriously, and guesses about the winner spread quickly. Wang Tiantua's expression turned more focused as he thought about how rare A-rank techniques were, even for his family. Xian looked confident, clearly eager to claim such a powerful skill. Lin Xing hid behind his fan, but his sharp gaze showed his determination, seeing this as a chance to prove his approach was right. Su Hong's eyes lit up with determination as well. The chance to gain another A-rank technique pushed him to go all in for first place. Watching everyone, Qin Tianli narrowed his eyes. He revealed that his real goal for this test was to uncover Su Hong's true limits and full strength. With that in mind, he moved forward and announced the order for the testing to begin. Lin Xing went first, followed by Xian, and then Wang Tiantu. The lineup alone made the trainees uneasy, and they quietly talked among themselves about how intense the start was. Some of them wondered who would end up going forth and have to deal with that kind of pressure. The Grandmaster soon revealed the next name, Su Hong. The crowd reacted with surprise, but Su Hong stayed composed, taking it as confirmation that he was being singled out. His old schoolmates, Chen Shan and Lidu, looked at him with sympathy. They remembered that he had placed last during the entry assessment and started guessing that he might have somehow upset the Grandmaster. Others shared their own theories, saying the Grandmaster probably arranged things on purpose, placing the weakest student right after the top 3 to highlight the gap and push everyone else to improve. Su Hong paid no attention to any of it. Meanwhile, Qin Tianli explained that the test would begin with raw physical combat power, followed by martial skills. Lin Xing stepped forward casually and mentioned that raw strength wasn't really his focus. Even so, he rushed toward the machine and delivered a powerful punch. The screen lit up and showed a score of 4013. The crowd reacted right away, clearly impressed. They pointed out that scoring over 4000 was already very high, especially for something he considered a weak point. Another trainee added that compared to his A-rank speed, his strength only seemed lower by comparison. Su Hong watched quietly and figured that Lin Xing's physical base had to be solid to handle an A-rank movement technique. At the same time, he got his system ready, planning to copy whatever martial art came next. Lin Xing then gathered swirling green wind energy around his fist. As he released the cloud-hiding gale fist, the attack slammed into the machine with force. The device shook, and the score jumped to 5642. The reaction was immediate. People started talking about how a score above 5,600 already met the level of a Tier 2 martial artist. They were especially struck by the strength of his B-rank technique. Su Hong quietly copied the move, green energy forming around his own hand as he analyzed the result. He noticed that the technique had only raised Lin Xing's score by around 1,600 points, which he didn't find all that impressive. After stepping down with a confident look, Lin Xing was met with a comment from Xian, who said his result was nothing special. He didn't seem bothered and simply told her to show something better. Xian then stepped up and recorded a base combat power of 3,253. The trainees commented that it made sense, since spirit-focused fighters usually didn't rely on physical strength. When it was time to use martial skills, her eyes lit up. She used her telekinesis to form a massive golden hammer and brought it down onto the machine with force. Su Hong's system reacted instantly, copying the ability and giving him the spirit attribute weapon condensation art. He felt satisfied as he took it in, thinking that the training camp was full of opportunities. A small smile appeared as he started wondering how many more techniques he could pick up before everything ended.